Haha. Video, audio. Looks like we're a go-go. If anybody's there, hi Soup Pot. Fingers crossed. It looks like we're in business tonight. Interestingly enough, let's get ourselves organized here a wee bit. That way. There we go. So you can see the mess in the corner. Oh dear. So I'm not sure if anybody's there just yet. Sorry about that, folks, but we had lots and lots of bother trying to get on last night to the fact that we just kaput. Wouldn't work. Interestingly enough, I took myself out for a bite of food afterwards, and nobody's machines were working at the restaurant. I won't name it, but I was just down at one of the supermarkets, and their machines are all on the blink tonight as well. Excuse me. So I'll get myself organised. As I said, welcome to Doc Sloan Science Fiction Station. We've come on about 5 or 6 minutes early tonight. So if anybody is out there, there's Soup Pot saying all good here. Yeah, I can see Soup Pot. It's a joy to behold, isn't it? There we go. That's a bit better. But yes, indeed, it looks like everything's going okay, which I'm delighted. Yeah, it's infuriating when that happens. Doesn't happen very often, as I said, once in a blue moon, but it does happen, and it's just it's when you, and I've been trying to stick to my times pretty much since with this book club, trying to go every Thursday if I can, at 9 o'clock, trying to keep it regular. I'm just going to grab some paperweights from over here because we'll need them. Oh, there we go. But how are you keeping, Soup Pot? How are you doing? Dear, oh dear. Right, I think I'm going to get myself a rollie, get my books in the right place. I was just really, like yourself, fingers crossed tonight, but I just thought if this isn't working tonight, I'll maybe need a bit more time to see if I can get it working, but I'm putting the blame entirely with YouTube, to be honest with you. It's nothing to do with us. I'm good, man. I'm healing well. How are you? Excellent. It's good to hear, Mark. I'm all right. I have a bit of a funny tummy, to be honest, but myself and the wife have had a bit of a funny tummy for the last few days. But yeah, it started off. I was going to head to Belfast today, maybe to take myself out a wee bit or something, but didn't happen. And I got the dogs out about midday. It was gorgeous here, and then the weather has just turned blanket grey with mist and mizzly rain, and it's just pretty hideous. So I was even going to have a wee walk down the town today, and it went from being super hot to super, I'm going to get absolutely drenched, But no, it's good to hear, man. I'm pleased that you're healing well. I wonder how long it'll be before you can get back out and about. I wonder. But yeah, that's good. I'm sure you're scattered. We're missing the rain at night. Yeah. No, it's just, as I said, it's such disparity in the weather here, but you can get all 4 seasons in one day here, pretty much. I've seen it before. Gorgeous sunny day with rain, full-on winds, and then snow in the middle of May. Up in the Glens of Antrim, actually, looking down over Glenarm. 6 weeks-ish. Well, that's not too long, I suppose, in the general scheme of things, But it'd be good for the summer. And in the meantime, we'll do our best to keep you entertained, Soup Pot. No, I hope you're well on the mend, sir. My hands are giving me an awful lot of bother at the minute, to be honest with you. But I'm going to sort of look in to see if I can get. I don't know. My doctor's is closing. My doctor. I've got a 100% mal diagnosis with my current doctor at the minute. And I'm just not happy about it. But no. And I don't know. It was partly, I think I've aggravated my hands with struggling with my ink pen. But I'm ambidextrous, but I'm dominant right-handed. But it's actually my left hand. I'm double jointed. You can probably see in both my thumbs. But what's happened is I was getting cortisone injections for a while, and this thumb seemed to have slipped or shifted joint, if that makes sense. I'm not too sure if that's what's happened, but it's just sore all the time now, and I can't pinch with it. I can still play guitar with it, fortunately. But it's just probably wear and tear and a bit of damage over the years. Just still getting organized here. But you can't complain. It could be worse. There we go. Goodness, we're getting there, aren't we? I've got a wee short chapter after this and then a bloody enormous one. But yeah, let me just set that up. It was an interesting week in news and stuff as well, but I'll maybe just keep it for the start of it. Does make sense. Had an MRI. Yeah, I had to get one too. It was on my hands, as I said, and then as I was getting cortisone injections, your woman sticks a big needle into your hand and wiggles it like a joystick. They have to take an X-ray every time she moves the needle. But I got that done on one hand, and then you're meant to get the next hand done after 3 months, I think, something like that. And about a year and a half went by, and they just kept cancelling the appointments. And my hand had gotten worse after the initial injection. This thing started happening, which is a kind of brand new kind of thing, because the damage that is done to my hands, part of it's arthritis, but part of it comes from an accident. Some of it's from kind of RSI, from using keyboards since the 70s, that kind of thing. God, it makes me sound ridiculously old, doesn't it? Let me see. There we go. There's 9 o'clock, Sootpot. So I'm going to say hello to everybody out there. Thanks very much for joining me. Welcome to Doc Sloan's Science Fiction Station with our Dune Messiah book club. And apologies to everybody. We were supposed to be on there last night, but YouTube just wasn't having us, I'm afraid, which was quite sad because we're really looking forward to getting into this. And we have a very good chapter ahead of us. And you're very compensated, etc. Yeah. I don't know. But as I said, hopefully I can get. I'm looking to get something done about pain management. Actually, that's the main thing, So just having a wee bit of a preamble natter there with Sootpot, because it popped on very, very early, and I'm hoping people will get back to us tonight. Actually, a few wee things just that I've made a wee note of. I suppose first of all, I don't know. It was probably a week or so ago, maybe, but I don't have a TV license in the UK, so I don't watch live TV. It's illegal for me to watch any TV that's broadcast. I'd like to thank the BBC for that. And I actually would like to thank them, because not taking their product anymore means that I'm a lot happier in life in general. But if I'm less well informed, I suppose. Not that I thought I was particularly well informed to start with. But I found a couple of wee things just in terms of people passing away. And I think we were having a wee bit of a chat about one on the Sootpot was, but I heard Bernard Hill had passed away. Who most people probably know as King Theoden from the Lord of the Rings films. In Britain, he's very well known as Yozzer Hughes, from the as Alan Bleasdeal's the Boys from the Black Stuff. He's a British icon, to be honest with you. I guess a job would have been his catchphrase. And I was chatting with Sootpot about Captain Sir Richard Francis Burton. That there is a film called To the Mountains of the Moon, which is about the Burton expedition to discover the source of the Nile. And Bernard Hill was in it. I think he plays Dr. Stanley. I think it's either Livingston or Stan. I can't remember which one. I know there's just a very funny scene in it where his character and I think it's Patrick Bergin playing Richard Francis Burton. Sort of compare scars, etc., injuries from their adventures in life and stuff. It's not a bad film, actually. It's about a particular incident, I suppose, in Captain Sir Richard Francis Burton's life, what eventually became what we call the sort of Hanning Speak controversy, if you like. So it's just very sad to hear that he'd passed away. And the other person that I'd heard passed away with a particularly good innings, I suppose, was Roger Corman. I'm very sad to hear about that. I'm a big fan of his, whether he be directing films or producing them, etc. Particular favourites of mine, pardon me, from the Roger Corman stable would be The Mask of the Red Death, in particular. All those Edgar Allan Poe films, and let me see, Battle Beyond the Stars, of course. And the wonderful Death Race 2000, and more recent Death Race 2050, all of which are great films and very much enjoyed. But I know, can't really leave out Little Shop of Horrors, can we? But such a prolific career, and just someone who's had a real impact on cinema, I think. And I think he was 98 when he passed away. So just sad to hear him that he's passed away, I suppose. And the other thing, I suppose, in relation to Dune that we've heard this week is that the trailer for Dune Prophecy has landed, and people are hopping on and analysing the hell out of a 45-second trailer or something like that. And of course, I think it's set 10,000 years before the events in Dune, and it is very much, I believe, a Brian Herbert, Kevin J. Anderson property. So I'm not I'll catch it if I can, but I'm probably not going to pay too much attention to it, to be honest with you. But for those of you who are into the extended and deeply watered down and diluted and polluted Dune universe by these two authors who've plundered the hell out of Frank Herbert's work and milked it like a golden cow, if you like. That's something. I think there's a computer game landing as well, and all things merchandising to do with Dune, and it's very much been turned into a franchise, I think, hasn't it? So that's just the little things on the radar there. Let me see. Was there anything else? Oh yeah, just before we get started, I suppose this is relevant to tonight. Somebody the other week had asked me about Hayt, the Duncan Idaho Gola. And it was just in relation to the character's name. And I said I was pretty sure that we'd done the etymological work on it. And I think it's going to be quite relevant for this chapter. So very quickly, I just have my notes here. I thought it was right at the very beginning, and it wasn't. It was in chapter 6. And so I've got my notebooks out, and it was just, let's see. I've written down it was cognate with Hayan in biblical Hebrew, but the Arabic is Hayat. And we can also find the word in Turkish and Indonesian, Malay. But the word means life. Hayat means in that sense, and I think that's going to be very relevant. So it was just in terms of the etymological work that we've done on that. We're going to see a chapter here between Hayt and Alia tonight. So let's have a wee look. So yeah, it's not a particularly long chapter. I suppose we've got about 11 pages. It's long enough, but I'd say it'd move along quite quickly. And I think I'd said in my little title card that's kind of reminiscent of the balcony scene from Romeo and Juliet, which, if my memory serves, is Act 2, Scene 2, I think. There's a couple of famous balcony scenes within literature. Who else would be? That's what I'm thinking of. Oh, Cyrano de Bergerac is a particularly good one, I think, one that's been much imitated. But that was the two I was thinking. There's a little bit of that, not too much, I think. But let's get started, shall we? I'll just start off with our epigraph as always. And what we have here is: the sequential nature of actual events is not illuminated with lengthy precision by the powers of prescience, except under the most extraordinary circumstances. The oracle grasps incidents cut out of the historic chain. Eternity moves. It inflicts itself upon the oracle and the supplicant alike. Let Muad'Dib's subjects doubt his majesty and his oracular visions. Let them deny his powers. Let them never doubt eternity. And this is from the Dune Gospels, with no author attached to that. And there's Cynthia saying, hi, Doc. Hi, all. Hi, Cynthia. Thanks very much for joining us. Hope you're keeping well. Sorry, apologies again about last night. So we're just getting started. I popped on very early tonight just to make sure things were working okay. And everything seems to be tickety-boo. I think you can all hear me okay and see me okay. But more importantly, I can see what's going on as well. So I just had a black screen last night. So let's see. We have a fair wee bit of reading here, I suppose, just to get through till we hit some dialogue. But first of all, we're told Hayt watched Alia emerge from her temple and cross the plaza. Her guard was bunched close, fierce expressions on their face to mask the lines moulded by good living and complacency. And I've made a wee comment here, just like the Sardaukar, just like the previous emperor Sardaukar, who again we're told that had a very good lifestyle, if you like, which made them soft. A heliograph of a thopter wings flashed in the bright afternoon sun above the temple. Part of the royal guard with Muad'Dib's fist symbol on its fuselage. Right. Let's see. So I might just read that again. A heliograph of thopter wings flashed in the bright afternoon sun above the temple. Part of the royal guard with Muad'Dib's fist symbol on its fuselage. That's it. Heliograph is one of them kind of shutter things, from the Greek word helio for sun, as the Greek god Helios, who's Medea's father, and graphene is to write, of course. So Hayt returned his gaze to Alia, and she looked out of place here in the city, he thought. Her proper setting was the desert, open space. An odd thing about her came back to him as he watched her approach. Alia appeared thoughtful only when she smiled. It was a trick of the eyes, he decided, recalling a cameo memory of her as she'd appeared at the reception for the guild ambassador. I just need to tidy something there. There we go. Haughty against a background of music and brittle conversation among extravagant gowns and uniforms. And Alia had been wearing white, dazzling, a bright garment of chastity. He had looked down upon her from a window as she crossed an inner garden with its formal pond, its fluting fountain fawns of pampas grass and white belvedere. Entirely wrong, all wrong. She belonged in the desert. So her proper setting is the desert, open, untrammeled space, where her freedom is not restricted, if you like. The color white here associated with Alia, as much as it points out with a bright garment of chastity, is also the color we associate with death in this novel. And I think we're going to get an association of white with Alia in this chapter and black with Hayt. Pampas grass, I had a wee quick look at that, is Cortaderia Celoana. Celoana, which is a cultivated ornamental and invasive species. I wasn't familiar with it myself, but I made a wee note again to see Frederick Cello, who it's named after. His name is spelled Sellow. His dates are 1789 to 1831, and Cello, like that, is I suppose any plant that has that attachment, Sello, is named after him. A belvedere is a beautiful architectural site or structure. So this is just this setting for Alia from Hayt's point of view is wrong. And this is a memory, if you like. It's an odd thing that's come back to him. And in this memory, he's been looking down upon her from a window. And we got a wee bit more of that. So Hayt drew in a ragged breath. Alia had moved out of his view then as she did now. So we're back to the present. He waited, clenching and unclenching his fists. The interview with Bijaz had left him uneasy. So in relation to hands and things like that within this chapter, we'll see Hayt being quite a wee bit assertive later on. Let me see. There we go. But in relation to it's, I suppose, his fists clenching and unclenching. In relation to Alia, it'll be her knuckles, her tightening her hands up to the knuckles go white, I think, later on as well. Pardon me. So we'd heard Alia's entourage pass outside the room where he waited. She went into the family quarters, and now he tried to focus on the thing about her which troubled him. It was the way she walked across the plaza. Yes. So I'll read that again. The way she walked across the plaza, almost a rhetorical question, but of course he answers it here. Yes, that's it. She moved like a hunted creature, fleeing some predator. He stepped out onto the connecting balcony, walked along it behind the plasmeld sunscreen, stopped while still in concealing shadows. Alia stood at the balustrade overlooking her temple. Now, I just thought, interestingly enough, the choice of balustrade, if you like, in that particular words, we could have balustrade is basically a railing or a balcony. But what's kind of interesting about it, I suppose, it comes from the word balustrion. I'll repronounce that, balustrion. There we go, that's better. Which is Greek. We have the Latin, which is balustrium, or balustrium, and the Italian would be balustro. But what its meaning is, interestingly enough, is balustro is a pomegranate flower. And pomegranate, in association, I've kind of talked a wee bit about this in one of my videos with Alia, is I suppose Alia as the Kore, the maiden, if you like. And of course, in Greek mythology, the Kore is Persephone, the wife of Hades, goddess of the underworld, and she's part of a triple divinity, if you like. And are actually sort of nature divinities in relation to, I suppose, corn, I think. But the thing that's associated most with that individual is the pomegranate, which I thought was kind of interesting. Maybe again, just me reading too much into it, Cynthia's saying, Hayt sensed that something is wrong with Alia via visuals, signals, and covers, tips him off to her current state. Reminds me of Stilgar's idea that an evil smell bodes ill. Yeah, whenever we get to Alia, I suppose that what we see is they're both observing each other, and there's something not quite right about either, if you like. Yeah. And it's this kind of, again, this observation from balconies, if you like. It's an interesting separation. Looking down, and concealed as well. This, he moves into the shadows on this balcony, rather than standing kind of, blatantly out there. So this is Hayt now. He looked where she was looking. So let's see. Just Alia stood at the balustrade overlooking her temple. So she moves up, excuse me. And he looked where she was looking, out over the city. He saw rectangles, blocks of color, creeping movements of life and sound. Structures gleamed, shimmered. Heat patterns spiraled off the rooftops. There was a boy across the way bouncing a ball in a cul-de-sac formed by a buttressed massif at a corner of the temple. Back and forth the ball went. Alia too watched the ball. She felt a compelling identity with that ball. Back and forth, back and forth. She sensed herself bouncing through corridors of time. That was kind of reminding me on something. I was trying to sort of think, was it Shakespearean? But it's not. I don't think it is. Just the back and forth. It's something that's a bit that's cognate with all the world's a stage, that kind of thing. But it was. I wonder, is it? Who am I thinking of? It's all the world's a tennis court. That thing. I wonder, is it Webster? Let me see. I bet you that's all the world's of tennis. I bet you that's probably too obscure, is it? No, I'm not finding anything. I'll just leave that. I'm thinking it's maybe. It really rings a bell. It's one of those speeches. It's a bit like the whole "all the world's a stage" speech from Shakespeare, but I'm pretty sure it's not. It's but it was all the world's a tennis court. But it's about the players and balls. I'm thinking it's. I'll maybe see if I can look this up for next time. Who am I thinking it is? I'm thinking it's Webster, and I'm thinking it's maybe the Duchess of Malfi, possibly. I'm not sure. Um, hmm. But she's identifying with this ball back and forth, being kicked about back and forth. And she sensed herself bouncing through corridors of time. The Here we go, I suppose. The potion of melange that she drained just before leaving the temple was the largest she'd ever attempted, a massive overdose. Even before beginning to take effect, it had terrified her. I'd written something, I'd gone a little bit ahead actually, but somebody had been asking about Frank's drugs experience, Frank Herbert's drug experiences, and I found them, and I'll go grab the book quickly. Oh, so we have it handy. I think I actually marked the page so we could. Somebody had asked me a wee while back about it, and I don't think we had the exact details. Yeah, I've got it here, so we can have a wee read about it. But it's 3 times he took drugs, according to his son, anyway. But there we go. So this is going to be Alia's overdose. She's taken the drug in the temple, and I thought it was interesting the way it was described as a potion, making it sound a bit mystical, magical, if you see what I mean. Pardon me. Don't have a wee drink here. So I'll just read that again. She drained the potion of melange she drained just before leaving the temple was the largest she'd ever attempted, a massive overdose. Even before beginning to take effect, it had terrified her. We get Alia's thoughts here. Why did I do it? She asked herself. And this is her answer to herself, if you like. One made a choice between dangers. Was that it? This was the way to penetrate the fog spread over the future by that damnable Dune tarot. A barrier existed. It must be breached. She had acted out of a necessity to see where it was her brother walked with his eyeless stride. So this is the key to this, actually. And we're actually going to get quite a lot of it in this chapter. A lot will be revealed, if you like. And it'll probably be more to the likes of us who've read all the way through the Dune series, maybe than those who are just reading this Dune Messiah for the first time. So we might have a few spoilers ahead. But it's kind of interesting when you think about it. I was actually thinking who I was based on this chapter. One of the questions I always ask folks is who's writing Dune. If there's a third person omniscient narrator, and the person that compiles all the historical documents and presents us with these stories, if you like, from a far future point of view. I was starting to think that the answer is Duncan himself. That's where I'm starting to go with, if there is such a thing other than Frank Herbert himself, if you like. But if there was an author to these books, and again that they're presented as a history from a far future point of view with many different historians collated together, if you like. This is the chapter that made me start thinking maybe ultimately that the historian who is writing all of these books, if you like, this missing third person omniscient narrator is Duncan Idaho. And it's starting to make sense a wee bit in my head. I don't know. It's just a wee thought. But why has she done this? Why has she taken a dangerous overdose that's terrified her? The answer is here, according to her. That she has a necessity to see what it is her brother, what her brother sees, basically, where her brother where it was her brother walked with his eyeless stride. And I suppose the question is, we're going to get to it in this chapter, is does it work? The familiar melange fugue state began creeping into her awareness. So we're getting a little bit of what melange is like. She took a deep breath, experiencing a brittle form of calm, poised and selfless. And again, we have some more of her thoughts here, if you like. Possession of second sight has a tendency to make one a dangerous fatalist, she thought. Unfortunately, There existed no abstract leverage, no calculus of prescience. Visions of the future could not be manipulated as formulas. One had to enter them, risking life and sanity. So I suppose some of the language here is a little bit mathematical. No abstracts, no leverage, no calculus or prescience. Maybe pertaining, mathematics and physics, if you like. There's no little thing that can help you sort of interpret this or guide you along the way. Everything's a risk, I suppose, with it. Visions of the future could not be manipulated as formulas. One had to enter them, risking life and sanity. And that's exactly what she's done here. A figure moved from the harsh shadows of the adjoining balcony. The Gola. In her heightened awareness, Alia saw him with intense clarity. The dark, lively features dominated by those glistening metal eyes. He was a union of terrifying opposites, something put together in a shocking linear way. He was shadow and blazing light, a product of the process which had revived his dead flesh, and of something intensely pure, innocent. Now, this chapter, I suppose, our epigraph, if you like. Let me just see. Sequential nature of actual events is not illuminated with lengthy precision by the powers of prescience, except under the most extraordinary circumstances. The oracle grasps incidents that are out of the historic chain. Eternity moves. It inflicts itself upon the oracle and the supplicant alike. Sorry, I thought there was something else there. Doubt on that and deny it, but never let them doubt eternity. Sorry, it was something else I was thinking on there. But this in particular, the terrifying opposites, is I think a motif of this chapter. And our first one really we have with shadow and blazing light with Duncan, and he's described with his dead flesh of something intensely pure and innocent. And it's interesting that prior to that, his opinion, his comment on Alia, she'd been wearing white, dazzling, a brilliant garment of chastity. So we're kind of getting the more kind of, I don't know, purity, if you like, purity and innocence with the two of them. And as much as perhaps that they both have other memories, but we also consider both of them, I suppose, virgins in that sense, innocent sexually, if you see what I mean, but not really innocent to life. And that's the interesting thing, or actually to sex itself, if that makes sense. Both of them having I'm assuming memories and knowledge of these kind of things. But he's innocent, and then this next comment, he was innocence under siege. And it's an interesting way to describe this man, isn't it? Sorry. It's not the sort of thing that we would actually go to think of as Duncan Idaho as being innocent, but this is Hayt himself, I think. Fresh and new to the world in a way. And under siege, he's definitely under attack. And this is the clarity, the intense clarity with which she's seeing him. And we have to kind of wonder, is that her popping up on her Melange trip here? Have you been there all along, Duncan? She asked. So I'm to be Duncan, he said. Why? Don't question me, she said. I kind of wondered, why not? And here again, we get Alia's thoughts. And she thought, looking at him, that the Tayaxu had left no corner of their Gola unfinished. Only gods can safely risk perfection, she said. It's a dangerous thing for a man. Duncan died, he said, wishing she would not call him that. I'm Hayt. And she studied his artificial eyes, wondering what they saw. Observed closely, they betrayed tiny black pockmarks, little wells of darkness in the glimmering metal facets. And again, that kind of lines up with what she's thinking about him over just previously. He was shadow and blazing light, And now he has these tiny black pockmarks, little wells of darkness in the glimmering metal. Facets. The universe shimmered around her and lurched. She steadied herself with a hand on the sun-warmed surface of the balustrade. Ah, the melange moved swiftly. Now, this is the bit where I made a wee note within the Frank's drugs experiences ×3, and I have been asked about it before, and I thought we could just have a wee quick look at them very quickly. And just before I'll check your comments there. Let's see. Cynthia saying, perhaps Alia's failure to understand the public trial of Corba, Stilgar had chided her for missing this, has been influential. Prescience has been clouded, but this may be part of her hesitancy. And to clarify, she may be unsure of her own powers, hesitant as a result of her failure to anticipate Paul. That's a good point, Cynthia. I was wondering, was she perhaps on Melange? Was she having a kind of a Melange fugue at the time as well? Let's see. Now, just having a wee quick look. I've got Frank's first drug experience here. I'll not read out. This is from Dreamer of Dune by Frank Herbert. And this stuff is in chapter 7, which is entitled The Newsman and Captain Video. Let me see, just jump forward. He said, we had been in Ciudad Guzman for only a few days when the retired Mexican Army general who ran the town asked to see Frank Herbert in order to evaluate his application for an extended stay in Mexico. One of the local merchants took Dad in a truck to the general's bureau, beautiful 3-story house where flowers hung from wrought iron balconies. The general was very friendly. Several people were in attendance and sweet cookies were served, which Dad liked. He ate 2, realizing later that the others only took 1 apiece. When Dad returned to the merchant's truck, he began to feel drunk. Okay. He told the merchant to go get their wives. They were going out to have a party. The merchant wanted no part of this, for he knew they would get into trouble. He told Dad that the cookies had been laced with the most expensive North African hashish in the world, flown in by the Mexican Air Force for the general. So there we go. It just goes on a wee bit here about, let's see. Dad recalled being taken into a beautiful building and guided up a long flight of stairs to a room with a table. There, the merchant and a beautiful woman filled him with 6 or 7 cups of strong Mexican coffee. Dad came down from his hallucination and noticed the woman was an old hag, a whorehouse madam. He left as soon as he could, and while descending the stairs, noticed how they smelled of urine and that there was a stench of burrow dung outside. So another time, a Mexican friend gave my father a cup of tea made with semilas seeds and didn't think to ask what sort of seeds they were. After consuming the delicious beverage, he learned they were morning glory seeds. Subsequently, he passed out, falling into a pleasant sleep. He recalled my mother waking him up the next morning in the sunny room. And a few months later, upon returning to the United States, Dad would have a third and final experience with a hallucinatory drug. While the first 2 experiences were inadvertent, the third, as I will explain later, was not. He says, through these experiences, he was developing an awareness of the significance of drugs in human life and would write about this one day in the Dune series. The fictional spice melange, the most important substance in the universe, was produced only on the planet Dune, and Paul Atreides' experiences with that drug mirror the author's personal experiences. Melange, in fact, would become the key to an entire political, economic, and religious structure in the Dune universe. Let's see. Yeah, so just seeing, was that the that's the first couple anyway, I think, isn't it? But yeah, it's not much. He had a hash brownie and apparently tripped the light fantastic, which I find a wee bit and to feel drunk on these things would be not quite correct. I don't know. But that's just a wee bit of blurb about we were talking about Frank Herbert's drug experiences, 2 inadvertently, 1 deliberate, but he took drugs 3 times according to Frank Herbert. So the around her and lurched. Pardon me, she steadied herself with a hand on the sun-warmed surface of the balustrade. Ah, the melange moved swiftly. So this is Hayt. Are you ill? Hayt asked. He moved closer, the steely eyes opened wide, staring. I just took that as, again, a sort of indicator of his innocence. And she doesn't answer him here. And Alia's thoughts here. Who spoke, she wondered. Was it Duncan Idaho? Was it the Mentat Gola? Or the Zen Sunni philosopher? Or was it a Tlilaxu pawn more dangerous than any guild steersman? Her brother knew. Pardon me. So this is the different ways, I suppose, that we can look at the Hayt Gola, if you like, that he's either Hayt or Duncan Idaho. He can be seen as a Mentat Gola or a Zen Sunni philosopher, or he can be seen as a Tlilaxu pawn. These are the different facets, if you like, of Hayt. That's the word, I suppose, yeah, previously about his eyes, the facets. Again, a facet's one side of a face of something with many sides, or geometric shape, if you like. Or it can be a particular aspect of a thing. But her brother knew, and I've written next to this that she does not. And that was 4 questions, if you like, in a way. Who spoke? Was it Duncan? Was it the Mentat Gola, the Zen Sunni philosopher? Was it a Tlilaxu pawn more dangerous than any guild steersman? Her brother knew. And again, she looked at the Gola. There was something inactive about him now, a latent something. He was saturated with waiting and with powers beyond their common life. And I've just made a wee note. She's also saturated with Melange and has powers beyond the common life, if you like. So we get to see some of the facets of Alia here now, I suppose. Out of my mother, I am like the Bene Gesserit, she said. Do you know that? I know it. I use their powers, think as they think. Part of me knows the sacred urgency of the breeding program and its products. And I've just made a wee note there that its products is a plural, I suppose. That's both her and Paul. And the idea of services and products, if you like, and tools, it just made me think again that the Bene Tlilax are very like the Bene Gesserit. She blinked, feeling part of her awareness began to move freely in time. It said that the Bene Gesserit never let go, he said, and he watched her closely, noting how white her knuckles were where she gripped the edge of the balcony. So again, we've had Hayt clenching and unclenching his fists, and this is Alia gripping, hanging on for dear life, if you like, with her knuckles to the point where they're white. And again, it's the second time the use of that color. Generally within Dune, when the color white is generally associated with death, if you like. And we are going to have basically a near-death experience here for Alia. And again, the hands represent, as always, both power and agency within the Dune universe. Have I stumbled? She asked. He marked how deeply she breathed with tension in every movement, the glazed appearance of her eyes. And again, we've got this, there's a great contrast between the two of them here, I think. We've got Hayt with a little specks of darkness within his metallic eyes, and now her eyes that are usually would be blue within blue are glazed. Tension in every movement, the glazed appearance of her eyes. So this is his response to her question, have I stumbled? When you stumble, he said, you may regain your balance by jumping beyond the thing that tripped you. The Bene Gesserit stumbled, she said. Now they wish to regain their balance by leaping beyond my brother. They want Chani's baby or mine. Hayt's question here is, are you with child? She struggled to fix herself in a time-space relationship to this question. With child? When? Where? I see my child, she whispered. And I've made a wee note here that there will be no child. which is interesting. So this is a possible future, I think, that she's seeing, um, under the overdose of melange, if you like. So she can see a child, and the word child is singular. I suppose that in a moment, I think we're going to go plural, and refer to children as opposed to a child. Um, so I see my child, she whispered. She moved away from the balcony's edge and turned her head to look at the Gola. He had a face of salt, bitter eyes, two circles of glistening lead, and as he turned away from the light to follow her movements, blue shadows. What was that? Was that reminding me on? Is that bear with me a wee second. Yes. Blue Shadows, the Three Amigos. That's what I was thinking on there. I don't know why it popped into my head. Blue Shadows on the Trail, isn't it? Blue, blah, 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 blah. I love that film, Three Amigos. But it's the bit where the wee tortoise just does the blah, 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 blah. Yes, indeed, Blue Shadows. Yeah, she's face of salt. I was wondering. I wonder what. Yeah, that I was just about to ask. There you go, Cynthia. Saying, what do you think face of salt means? Tears, perhaps. Somebody insulted me once. In French, actually, I didn't think I understood what they were saying, but the insult was that. Simply, rather rudely, they wanted to use my debit card, if you like, because their credit card had been declined. And they went, "You can pay for this," and I went, "No, I won't." Like that, and they just took great offence at it. And then there's a chap from Algeria, and basically what he said was, "I like this person like salt, little and not very often." So I don't know. Salt has all sorts of associations, doesn't it? The biblical story of Lot's wife comes to mind. She turns to a pillar of salt for looking at something she shouldn't. And that story, yeah, there's all sorts of things like that. That story in particular, I always thought that was a bit mean, wasn't it? That story is a retelling of the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. It's what happens to her, basically. She's not turned into a pillar of salt. Let me see. But yes, it does make you think a little bit about that. There's also there's an apocryphal story about the Romans salting the ground outside of Carthage, which I don't think ever happened, in order that nothing would ever grow there again. Face of salt. I'm thinking maybe it's just perhaps like the color white, but again, salt comes in all sorts of different colors, doesn't it? But yeah, Lot's wife comes to mind. She turns to, that's an interesting story. And it's an incestuous story, isn't it? Following on with Lot and his daughters, for looking at something she shouldn't. Yeah. In Greek mythology, almost identical story is that, well, it's not identical, but the general gist of it is the same, is that, let me see if I can remember this, and again, it would be to do with, we had that reference to the pomegranate, I suppose, but I'm not too sure. Orpheus and Eurydice, she's, I'm trying to remember, I think it might be, I haven't read this one in a while. I think on her wedding day that, I think a centaur tries to rape her, and she flees away and is bitten by a snake and dies. And this causes Orpheus to descend. The old phrase, Orpheus in the underworld, is a very common name for restaurants and pubs in a certain part of the world, if you like. But he descends into Hades to get her back, and performs his music for Hades and Persephone. And his music is so beautiful that they grant his wish, and basically tell them on the way up, not basically the same thing as they ascend out of Hades, not to look back. And I think as they're leaving, they can kind of feel this kind of creeping dread coming behind them, and she turns and looks back, I think, and she's dragged back into Hades forever. And that's the kind of, it's also kind of reminiscent of the story of Gilgamesh, I think, as well. That loss of that boon, if you like, at the last moment. But yeah, salt. I don't know. Bitter eyes, salt. Face of salt, bitter eyes, 2 circles of glistening lead. And as he turned away from the light to follow her movements, blue shadows. Let's just have a wee quick look. Salt is a symbol for incorruptibility and immortality. This was something I found there. Salt, let's see, salt mythology signifies preservation, the binding of spiritual covenant. There we go. Yeah, Wikipedia is saying a superstition in Western cultures holds that spilling salt is an evil omen. However, salt has a variety of meanings in religions around the world. It's incredibly important in desert cultures, oddly enough. On a planet like Arrakis, actually, it's something that Frank Herbert doesn't really talk about within the Dune series, is you would need salt. Salt would be ridiculously important. Let's see. Salt and religions. We just the 1556 hieroglyphic of Piero Valeriano Bolzani reports that salt was formerly a symbol of friendship because of its lasting quality, for it makes substances more compact and preserves them for a long time. Hence, it was usually presented to guests before other food to signify the abiding strength of friendship. Wherefore, many considered ominous to spill salt on the table, and on the other hand, propitious to spill wine, especially if unmixed with water. Let's see. It says this may not be the actual explanation, since salt was a valuable commodity in ancient times, absolutely, and as such was seen as a symbol of trust and friendship. A German proverb that whoever spills salt arouses enmity. According to Charles Nodier, among savages, the action of spilling salt indicates among them the refusal of protection and hospitality from such strangers, as they may have reason to suspect are thieves or murderers. This led to the common misconception that due to salt being such a valuable item, Roman soldiers were paid in it. That's right, your salary, if you like, is where that comes from. That's not true. They were given salt, but it's not their wages. The idea is so widely held and been for so long that the etymology of the word salary comes from the Latin salarium, which was originally salt money, the sum paid the soldiers for salt. There we go. There's quite a lot here, actually. We've got Judas Iscariot supposedly spilled the salt at the Last Supper. Indeed, it says Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper depicts Judas Iscariot having knocked over a salt cellar. I've never noticed that. Often taken as a questionable explanation because spilling salt was generally considered a bad omen already, and this imagery predates Leonardo's usage. Salt, let's see. It says in Brahmanic sacrifices and during festivals held by Semites, as well as the Greeks at the time of the new moon, salt was thrown into fire to make crackling noises. Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans invoked gods with salt offerings. Some people think this to be the origin of holy water in Christianity. In Aztec mythology, Huitzilopochtli, oh goodness, Huitzilopochtli, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, was a fertility goddess who presided over salt and salt water. There's tons here. There's Lot's wife turned into a pillar of salt when she looked back at Sodom and Gomorrah. When the judge destroyed them, he is said to have sown salt on it. The book of Job mentions the New Testament 6 verses mentions salt, etc., etc. Yeah, there's tons of stuff there. One of my favorites in relation to salt is that kind of the old I'm not sure where this comes from. I read this a long, long time ago, but it was kind of one of those adventure, archaeologists following a treasure map with X marks the spot and spending a lot of their own money to try and find this ancient treasure of the ancients, and they find it, and it turns out to be a big, big, big mountain of salt. There we go. Duncan has dark skin, so I'm not sure the mention of salt refers to a white color. Could be like salt and pepper, if as in salt and pepper hair. It might be something in relation to a bit like his eyes again. The tiny black pock marks, little wells of darkness in the glimmering metal facets. Who knows? It's not clear, is it though, Cynthia? That's the one thing. I as much as I love stuff like this, I hate a face of salt. I'm not too sure what it means at all. Bitter eyes, maybe it's maybe the bitterness. Two circles of glistening lead, and as he turned away from the light to follow him, blue shadows, which would suggest that the lessening of the darkness of the shadows, if you like. What do you see with such eyes? She whispered. What other eyes see, he said. His words rang in her ears, stretching her awareness. She felt that she reached across the universe, such a stretching, out. She lay intertwined with all time. You've taken the spice, a large dose, he said. Why can't I see him? She muttered. The womb of all creation held her captive. Tell me, Duncan, why I can't see him. Who can't you see? Now, at this point, just before reading on, I had written, is it Paul? Is it her child? Is it the father of her child? And immediately after scribbling that, got my answer. I cannot see the father of my children. I'm lost in a tarot fog. Help me. And I just thought that's quite sad. And who could be the potential father of this potential child? And this is where we've got, again, it's children now, not a child, which I think kind of is interesting the way it kind of mirrors a little bit what's going on with Paul and Chani. And who could be the possible father of this child? It's most likely it could be Paul, as we're going to find out. But it could also be Hayt. But as I said, for a wee bit of a spoiler thing, I suppose, ultimately, though, she will not have a child. I'm lost in the tarot fog. This is why she's taking this, I think, is to try and see clearly what her brother sees. Mentat logic offered its prime computation. So this is Hayt as Mentat Gola. Offered its prime computation, and he said, the Bene Gesserit want a mating between you and your brother. It would lock the genetic. And I find this quite sad. A whale escaped her. So the answer to my question there was this would be Paul as her father. As the father of her children. A whale escaped her. The egg in the flesh, she gasped. And this would be the answer as to why she can't see the father of her children, because she cannot see, as we're told, where Paul is walking. Let me just see. She'd acted, just jumping back, why has she taken this overdose? Out of necessity to see where it was her brother walked with his eyeless stride. I suppose it's interesting if we think about the eyes in this chapter, we get a lot of mention of Duncan's eyes, lead as well, circles of glistening lead. They have these facets to them with darkness in them, bitter eyes. Her eyes, the blue within blue within blue, are glazed, and of course her brother is blind. But this is why can't I see the father of my children? Because it's Paul, possibly, and he's the thing that it's him that's obscured from her prescient vision by the tarot fog, I suppose, amongst other things, And again, this is all very Oedipal, isn't it? And it always makes you wonder why. I think we were somebody. I think it might have been yourself. Cynthia mentioned the previous time there, previous episode about the what's so about the Harkonnen genes, if you like. But this is again, whatever it is they're looking to secure, whatever, and as Alia puts it, a sacred urgency about the breeding program. I wonder what that is. What is the sacred urgency? Um, why it's incest is what we're talking about here, and that's um, it seems that the way to create Kwisatz Haderach is with the inbreeding, with incest that somehow locks. That's not a good thing for genes at all. And it makes you wonder about the whole thing, if you like. What would be the effect of all of this if they kept up this inbreeding down through the centuries? Um, that one of those stories, I suppose, that makes me think about that always would be H.P. Lovecraft's The Dunwich Horror, particularly inbred family and that. So the egg in the flesh, she gasped. A sensation of chill swept over her, followed by intense heat. So she's going cold hot. The unseen mate of her darkest dreams, flesh of her flesh that the oracle could not reveal. Would it come to that? And particularly that wail that escapes her there. Very much reminds me of Yocasta, Oedipus's mother and wife. And the unseen mate of her darkest dreams. So has she dreamed this? Has she wondered about it? I would consider her worst nightmares, perhaps. Flesh of her flesh that the oracle could not reveal. Would it come to that? So this is Hayt now. Have you risked a dangerous dose of the spice? He asked. And something within him fought to express the utmost terror at the thought that an Atreides woman might die, that Paul might face him with the knowledge that a female of the royal family had gone. And again, it's interesting just comparing. I think we have a lot of similar things going on with these two characters here. And I suppose we're heading towards a romance, I think, in many a way. But it's what I think that this chapter shows you in a way how the romance might develop, if you like, but it's what they have in common. Being quite different individuals, but Alia goes into this terrified about the overdose of Melange. And here we have Hayt experiencing the utmost terror at the thought of an Atreides woman might die, that Paul might face him with the knowledge that a female of the royal family had gone. And you kind of wonder what that's about. And I'm kind of wondering about it in two ways. One, is it something that the Tleilaxu have bred into the Duncan Idaho Gola Hayt, something that they've instilled into him, just in a similar way to him being a Mentat, to him being a Zen Sunni philosopher. This is a strong compulsion to protect any Atreides woman, or is this the Duncan Idaho his personality coming to the core? To the fore. Sorry. And that this might be a quality that Duncan has, the strong need to desire, strong need to protect any Atreides woman. An Atreides woman might die. I suppose the interesting thing is there aren't too many of them, really. There's Alia, there's Jessica. We can't really, as much as we can't really consider Chani an Atreides woman, can we? Though she's a member of the royal family, she's not part of that bloodline, if you like. That's just my thoughts on it, really. But why has he got this something with him? Maybe it's just a natural desire to protect her out of love, and that she might die from overdose, suicide, this kind of thing. Oh, there's Carlos saying, "Hey guys, sorry I'm late." Hi Carlos, thanks very much for joining us. It's a quiet room tonight, I think, just with all the shenanigans that went on last night. But thank you very much for joining us. I hope you're keeping well, sir. Cynthia saying, I find it odd that Hate so easily mistakes the circumstances of his compulsion for love. He fears her death and thinks he has insight about himself and his emotions. Yeah, there's I think there's a lot of confusion within him, isn't there? That he mistakes the circumstances of his compulsion for love, and it's an interesting kind of, I don't know. I always thought them a bit of an odd couple, to be honest. We see more of them as more of them as a couple in Children of Dune, don't we? But again, he's kind of, was it we're told about him in this that he's in something innocent and pure about him. No, it was it was something else. Let me just see if I can find it. It was just that latent, something latent in him, something. He's viewing her like a hunted creature fleeing a predator. I suppose we could maybe look at the predator itself as being time, as being the oracle itself. But there's something going on with him as well. And again, it's whatever that's happened. They're told that the conversation with Bijaz had left him uneasy. But there's something about that. Yeah, there's something about both of them, I think, in this case. And she sees him as a union of terrifying opposites, something put together in a shocking linear way. Which I think is that something to do with her vision as well. Excuse me, my nose is tickling the heck out of me. Innocence under siege. But yeah, there's something within him, and that's it. That's what I was looking for. Something inactive about him now, a latent something, And he seems to be completely unaware of what's happened to him with Bijaz, He fears her death, and he thinks he has insight about himself and his emotions. Since I need to leave early tonight, thanks as always. No worries, Cynthia. Thank you very much as always. Have a good night. Take it easy. Let's see, where were we? Yeah, have you risked a dangerous dose of this vice? He asked, and then this something within him fought to express the utmost terror. That the idea that an Atreides woman might die, and then you have to explain it to Paul. This is what she says. You don't know what it's like to hunt the future, she said. Sometimes I glimpse myself, but I get in my own way. I cannot see through myself. She lowered her head, shook it from side to side. And so again, that's interesting just in terms of how he was looking at her earlier. As someone being hunted, a hunted creature fleeing some predator. And it could be in the sense that she's hunting herself, looking for herself in the future. And sometimes that she glimpses herself is what we're told here, but she gets in the way, so she can't see past herself, can't see through herself. And that kind of reminds me a little bit of the litany against fear, I think, Carlos saying, with his mental ability, shouldn't Duncan have figured out that Jessica was a hardcore? Well, he's been told that previously, but I don't know how much of what Bijaz has done has sort of blocked out that, the compulsion upon him has blocked that out. And maybe it's kind of they want him to have the ability to kill an Atreides woman. It's a good point, because that is kind of relevant to this. Terror at the thought of an Atreides woman might die. that could be the thing that kind of works against, I suppose, the Thylaxu compulsion, because they want him to kill, don't they? How much of the spice did you take? He asked. Nature abhors prescience, she said, raising her head. Did you know that, Duncan? And he spoke softly, reasonably, as to a small child. Tell me how much of the spice you took. He took hold of her shoulder with his left hand. And she says, words are such gross machinery, so primitive and ambiguous. That's I have a wee textual mistake in the book here where my copy, Frank, does not close his quotation marks, or probably not his fault maybe at this point, I don't know. Let me just have a wee look there. Plug that down. Now, interestingly enough, nature abhors prescience. This is another one of these kind of famous quotes that Frank Herbert takes from someone else and changes one word and presents it, as his wisdom, if you like. This is, in fact, well, depending on how you want to put it, horror vacui, or natura abhorret a vacuo, which is nature abhors a vacuum, is the real quote. And it's attributed to Aristotle. I think in Latin, this one would be natura abhorret presentia. Sorry, presentium. It should be nature abhors prescience. But it isn't, yeah, it's an alteration of nature abhors a vacuum, which is quite interesting. Here's a new word for me, by the way. I was having a wee nosy at this, and I've been aware of this quote for quite some time, but I didn't know that there was a word for this, actually. So the word plenism, Plemism, is a planist, if you like, is someone who believes there are no vacuums in nature. And I suppose the antonym would be a vacuist. So there we go. But nature abhors a vacuum is kind of the alteration of this from Aristotle. Nature abhors prescience. Did you know that, Duncan? So the bit where she says words are such gross machinery, so primitive and ambiguous. I said we had no close quotes there, but that kind of reminded me on Bijaz and his words as well. And she pulled away from his hand. You must tell me, he said. Look at the shield wall, she commanded, pointing. That's a bit random, isn't it? And she sent her gaze along her own outstretched hand, trembled as the landscape crumbled in an overwhelming vision. A sandcastle destroyed by invisible waves. Wonder what that was about. I kind of worrying, is this a look to the far future destruction of Dune? Ultimately, Dune is destroyed by obliterators, isn't it? With the 100 mad rays. What it reminded me on was the Jimi Hendrix song. Was it Castles Made of Sand Fall in the Sea Eventually? It's a great song, isn't it? I love it. There's Joseph Smith saying, June fan, howdy, Joseph. Thanks very much for joining us. It's a quiet room tonight. But yeah, it's good to have you here. I think we just had a lot of bother trying to get on last night. I'm not, much as I've said, sorry, none of it was my fault at all. I'm completely blaming YouTube for it. But we did have several goes. But yeah, thanks very much for joining us. We're just having a wee chat about nature abhors prescience. It's again, we're getting a personification of nature within this chapter, a personification of time and eternity as well. I think in particular is Frank's thing here with what the Atreides are up to. It's within the epigraph, if you like. That regardless of what you think you can see into the future, and we mentioned this before, but this is kind of the point that Frank's trying to make with what these people, what their abilities are, is that regardless of what the oracle grasps, etc., various incidents out of this historic chain, the eternity moves, and that epigraph ends with "Let them never doubt eternity." I suppose the idea is no matter what, that what they can see within a given lifetime, even. You could experience one lifetime's worth of prescient visions, which is a finite amount, if you see what I mean. To have future memories, the Atreides scions, if you like, still have to move forward in a linear fashion in the real world, and that their lives are finite, and that they might be able to glimpse fragments of eternity, but any given time frame within eternity is as if nothing compared to the scope of something that is eternal, that's infinite, if you like. And that's ultimately what the Atreides problem is. Carlos is saying mentats should aspire to being a vacuum to absorb all facts and information around them. I'm a bit like that. I kind of understand the mentat ideal, actually. And all enough, I've got a student at the minute who's a bit like that. Is very, very clever, and is a human sponge. Just wants to know everything, and has the enthusiasm to go with it. Yeah. The problem for the mentats, I suppose, and I suppose this mirrors the problem of prescience, is that you cannot ever get all the facts. You can't ever get all the information, no matter what. None of us can. Which is sad. I'm one of these people. I just wish I could read a book in a minute, because there's interestingly enough, I think I'm a big fan of Carl Sagan's, and I watched a wee video about him recently. And of course, the famous thing that he said is the trick is to read the right books. But there's a video of him on YouTube discussing this, and he's talking simply about how much you can read as a human being in one lifetime. And it's going to be the tiniest fragment of all the human knowledge that's out there in terms of book form and other forms of media. As a classicist myself, I try to read as much within the subject as I can. And even choosing my courses at university, if I pick this, I can't do that. If I pick this, I can't do that. So I'm trying to focus on certain things, but even just trying to study that one subject, for example, covers easily close to, if you go back into archaic Greece, it covers thousands of years. And there's no classicist, for example, on Earth that knows it all. There's not a chance. Just not possible, But it's an interesting idea, isn't it? But I like that, to be a vacuum, to absorb all facts and information around them. I'd like to be that myself. It's, but I'm also one of those people that believes that sadly enough, I think, was it innocence? Was it? Ignorance is bliss, isn't it? The more you know, I think, it doesn't necessarily make you happier, I think. And sometimes the fact that you know things that other people don't can be quite an isolating thing. It can separate you completely from your society, this kind of thing, I've always said, I'm sure you've heard me say it many times actually, but it's simply not. I live in a Christian country, for example, that used to be a pagan country. But it's simply not possible for me to become a Christian. There's no way on this earth it could happen. And that's because of what I know, rather than my ignorance or any kind of faith, if you like, that kind of thing, Not getting too small to smoke. Let me make another wee cigarette here and get a wee bit of fluids. But it's a good point. And I think it kind of resonates with the prescience of the Atreides. And we're going to see that with Alia here, with her overdose. Is that she's taking this to see a specific things, but the prescience is like snapshots, isn't it? It's almost like grabbing a Polaroid of a particular moment in time, and how big is time? And it's interesting that I suppose that both the Atreides are meant to have this other memory, this ability to look into the past, and how long would the past be? Going all the way back, At this point in there, probably still about 15 billion years or something like that. Even with their abilities, what they know, would have to be extremely, extremely limited. So let's see where we were. Oh yeah, look at the shield wall. A sandcastle. She sent her gaze along her outstretched hand, trembled as the landscape crumbled in an overwhelming vision, a sandcastle destroyed by invisible waves. She averted her eyes, was transfixed by the appearance of the Gola's face. His features crawled, became aged, then young, aged, young. He was life itself, assertive, endless. She turned to flee, but he grabbed her left wrist. All of the grabbing and etc. is done with the left hand in this. If you see, I mean, it's his left hand on her shoulder, the left hand on her wrist, this kind of thing. I suppose left hand representing sinister, if you like, as opposed to Dexter. I was kind of wondering about the quote about the left hand of darkness, which is, the title of Ursula K. Le Guin's novel. That would have been the first of her books that I read, long time ago. And it actually, I was wondering, was it a literary quote? But it is a literary quote, but it's from a poem within the book itself. And I suppose the title of the book is designed to draw attention to it. But I just, in terms of the left hand, maybe thinking of Paul and the fist. We were mentioned Paul's right at the very beginning. We always point this out about hands within these books and what they represent. And of course, I'm from a country where hands are a big part of the iconography of this country, if you like. But way back, and you kind of wonder, why did it mention it here? But it's right at the beginning. A heliograph of thopter wings flashed in the bright afternoon sun above the temple, part of the royal guard with Muad'Dib's fist symbol upon it. And we've had Duncan opening and closing his fists here, and we've had Alia gripping onto the balcony till her knuckles are white. But a lot of particularly with these two, it's to do with the left hand, if you like. And I think, again, just in terms of Paul being the right hand, the fist, the hand, all of these kind of symbols that are associated with him. And of course, the other symbol, we were talking about the fish monster the other week, the other symbol that Paul Atreides uses is the fish. Isn't it? Interestingly enough. Just looking up this, what's it? Ichthia. I'm trying to remember its name. Which is, of course, a particular symbol of the ichthys, if you like, is what it's called. The ichthys is a particular symbol of Christianity. You'll see a lot of our politicians will wear little fish on their labels. It's a common thing here. Joseph Smith saying like button. Yeah, I never really do that, do I, Joseph? It's but I suppose maybe I should sometimes, but I don't think it will make much difference. We tend to have the same number of people kind of looking at these things consistently, to be honest with you. But we have X amount here. I don't know. There's some people who are catching up as well. I had a couple of wee links to put in there tonight, actually. Just once again, just very quickly, when I remember. But the person who I called just for ease, X-Ray Zulu, had sent me another lengthy email, and I'm reading through it, lots of links and stuff. And I think they might have sent this before, but I got a chance to watch this. And there you go. That's the what's it called? Hang on a second. Maybe that's not it. Boom. Oh, bear with me a wee second. I wonder if I clicked the wrong thing here. Looks like I might have done in various instances. Hang on a second. Is that what I paid? Bear with me a wee second, folks. Copy. Oh, so that's not coming up at all. That looks like a bad link. Hang on. Oh, it's not brought up the right thing at all. Uh, yeah, we'll just hang on. I'll just take that out. There we go. That's not the thing I thought I was posting at all. Joseph Smith saying I'm going to be on the road, but I'll have you on. No worries, Joseph. That's interesting. No, what I thought I was posting a link to there was the David Lynch documentary. Let me just see. I'll never remember the name. The Art of Life. That's it. I think it's on YouTube there. Which I got a chance to watch there just the other day. Take me here, Mr. David Lynch, The Art of Life. Yeah, sorry, I wonder if it didn't seem to be working on my browser. Sorry, I hope maybe that was it. Yeah, I was just, if anybody's not seen it, that's the first time I've watched it. And I watched it while I was sort of scribbling away at my notes and stuff, and I thought it was fascinating. It was really insightful, very interesting, very, very much biographical. I got to see David Lynch do a lot of work as an artist as well. And just some of the stories that he told. I just thought it was excellent. It was a very well observed documentary. He certainly is a very interesting character, Yeah, I must check that link. I'll post that again. I suppose just be things that are on the radar. That's why he's reminded me. Let's see, where were we? Yeah, we were talking about this earlier. Some of the thoughts that I was starting to have here about who is the author of Dune, if you like, within the Dune universe. Who is this third person omniscient narrator? And I was starting to think it's Duncan Idaho. But what we're seeing here, I think, is a big clue. She averted her eyes, was transfixed by the appearance of the Gola's face. His features crawled, became aged, then young, aged, young. He was life itself, assertive, endless. She turned to flee, but he grabbed her left wrist. Now, I think, is this the future and varying Duncan Idahos that we'll see throughout the Dune series? In different places, throughout the different books, if you like, young and old. And he was life itself. And we were mentioning that somebody asked me the other week about the etymology of hate. And I think somebody had asked, does it mean the same in Gaelic, if you like, Gaelic? And of course, we were saying in Arabic, hate is life. And the clues in the name. And he was life itself. Literally, he is life. And of course, I suppose even with the Denis Villeneuve, with the font, I think they made a little in-joke, a little pseudo-spoiler, if you like, with the Dune looking very much like Dunk, I thought. And they should move the 4 letters across and put in Duncan, But yeah, and I think this is I don't think I maybe noticed this before, to be honest with you. As much as always there are plans within plans within plans, maybe other visions within visions within visions. What is it that Paul is trying to bring about? And the strong indication from this chapter is that it's something to do with Duncan Idaho, not himself, not the little emperor, if you like, but Duncan. So Hayt says, I'm going to summon a doctor. No, this is Alia, sorry. No, you must let me have the vision. I have to know. And it's almost like she's addicted to the future, addicted to Melange here at this point. You're going inside now, he said. And I've made a wee note here saying, I think there's a double meaning there. Literally going inside, but she's deep inside the vision. She stared down at his hand. Where the flesh touched, she felt an electric presence that both lured and frightened her. And again, this is to do with these, we were saying, I think it's a motif throughout this chapter, these terrifying opposites that we're told. Duncan is a union of terrifying opposites, something put together in a shockingly linear way. She jerked free and grasped, "You can't hold the whirlwind." Oh, that's interesting. "You must have medical help," he snapped. "Don't you understand?" she demanded. "My vision's incomplete, just fragments. It flickers and jumps. I have to remember the future. Can't you see that?" And again, it's a kind of paradoxical, almost oxymoronic statement, isn't it, to remember the future? Try that. That. Sorry, super. I think I jumped ahead and I've lost context there, but I think you're trying to put. Yeah, I must. But yeah, if anybody hasn't seen that, take me there, David Lynch, The Art of Life. Yeah, I thought it was. I don't know if you've seen it, super or not. It's the link. Let me just see again very quickly. Let me just have a wee quick nosy. So Xvid. Oh, it doesn't. Do open. Yeah, there it is. There. Hang on. Cut. Bosh. Paste. There we go. That's the link that took me straight there. I don't think that was the thing I copied earlier. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe something happened to it. But there we go. Yeah, if anybody wants to check it out, it's free on the web. I loved it. Again, because I'm not watching live TV anymore. I was sort of saying that the person that sends me these emails is just within there's XZ within their email, so I call them X-Ray Zulu. Because it's just easier to say. They send me all sorts of stuff, but they'd also send me a link to what was it, Paprika, which I absolutely adored, and had so many interesting things in it. I can't wait to watch it again, actually. But because I don't watch, it's illegal for me to watch live television. What a lovely country I live in. Yeah, I'm kind of people who are sending me these. Oh, check this out, check that out. That's exactly what I'm doing, and it's giving me stuff to watch. There we go. Carlos is saying, "I would have loved to hear Frank's take on time as a non-linear phenomenon." There is as much as I wonder what Frank's take would be on it. As I said, we've got all of those audio files available at the minute, which I've kind of trawled through a few. I basically just had a super busy time with my students and hitting exam time there. I've had a few students do exams yesterday, for example, so best of luck. I hope that things went well for them. So my kind of things are winding down a little bit for me. I still will maintain some students over the summer, but I'm going to have a lot more time on my hands, and I really want to sit down with a notepad and pen, basically, and have a good listen to all these audio tapes of Frank Herbert. We've posted a wee link to them on the community page. But the one I was thinking on, Carlos, that's very interesting. And I watched it a wee while back with my wife, and it actually encouraged it was Philip K. Dick discussing his sense of time, if you like, and reality. And it's if you go to YouTube and type in Philip K. Dick, I think it's a talk that he gives in France. I would say sort of Philip K. Dick France keywords talk, and it's the one where there's a copy where the questions have been removed, if you like, so that it's been stitched together to give you Philip K. Dick discussing his ideas on time and stuff like that. My wife thought it fascinating, and it led her to reading. I said, "Well, here you go. Read Ubik." She was asking about, I must read something by him. Though I was suggesting, maybe reading The Divine Invasion, which is a rather good biography of Philip K. Dick. But that talk in particular is really interesting on what he thinks about time and that it's not linear, and that things can move sideways, this kind of thing. It's particularly good. But I was pointing out that Philip K. Dick was a man who used and abused an awful amount of drugs, and we should bear that in mind when you listen to him. because the certain drugs do really mess with your sense of time and awareness and perception. Uh, hmm. But yeah, it would be good to know. Well, maybe we can figure it out, Carlos. Maybe do a wee bit of research and see if we have. But that in particular, we were talking about earlier, is that idea of the problem with the prescience, and I suppose time is linear, but within Jim, we bounce back and forward within the narrative, and we get a sense of what it's like to be prescient as readers. Um, that we're often, it's an interesting book in terms of spoilers, if you like. That the Dune series often spoils things for you, and gives you glimpses of what's happening from the future. And interestingly enough, and paradoxically enough, it does it through historical documents. Mm. But yeah, here we go. Do you understand? She demanded. My vision's incomplete. Just fragments, it flickers and jumps. I have to remember the future. Can't you see it? What is the future if you die? He asked, forcing her gently into the family chambers. So as much as he said, you're going inside now, he's moving her inside, although she's trying to shake him off. Words, words, she muttered. I can't explain it. One thing is the occasion of another thing, but there's no cause, no effect. We can't leave the universe as it was. Try as we may, there's a gap. Whereas a lacuna, as somebody had pointed out to me the other week, which is an unfilled space or a gap. One of the new words I got taught by my audience, I think, was great. Um, Stretch out here, he commanded. He is so dense, she thought. Dense is a word she uses about him a couple of times. Um, cool shadows enveloped her. So she's been going from cold to hot, and no pun intended. Um, and now she's cool again. Cool shadows enveloped her. The shadows started off dark, that Duncan was hiding in, if you like. And then we had that little blue shadow moment. And now there are cool shadows that envelop her. She felt her own muscles crawling like worms. So this is the effects of Melange upon her, I think. A firm bed that she knew to be insubstantial. Only space was permanent. Nothing else had substance. The bed flowed with many bodies, all of them her own. Time became a multiple sensation, overloaded. It presented no single reaction for her to abstract. It was time. It moved. The whole universe slipped backward, forward, sideways. I'm going to put C epigraph there. Hmm. So just in relation to our epigraph, I think the sequential nature of actual events is not illuminated with lengthy precision by the powers of prescience, except under the most extraordinary circumstances. The oracle grasps incidents out of the historic chain. Eternity moves. It inflicts itself upon the oracle now. And the supplicant alike. And just the end of that is, whether you doubt Muad'Dib, etc., his oracle visions just never doubt eternity. And I think that's the interesting thing. We're getting a lot of clues in this, because how Duncan Idaho is described in this by Alia. Let me just see if I can find it. Is he's linear, isn't he? Let me just see if I can something put together. Yeah, he is something. He is a union of terrifying opposites, but something put together in a shocking linear way. And is what's shocking about him. We're getting this sense of Duncan Idaho, a future Duncan Idaho in the vision. Excuse me, old and young, aged then young, aged young, life itself, assertive, endless. In fact, he almost kind of reminds me on kind of sense that I was starting to get of the oracle of what's being seen. Severian. Um, Goodness gracious. Oh my brain! I'm having a brain fart. Hang on. Yes, there we go. Variant from Gene Wolfe's The Book of the New Sun. Kind of as our narrator, if you like, that kind of thing. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it. It's a fantastic set of books, and a very interesting read. From a classicist point of view, from a classical point of view, it's loaded, absolutely loaded with words and imagery, if you like, from the classical world. Severian itself being a Roman name, and he's a lictor, isn't he? That's an interesting thing. But yeah, so he's kind of guided her to a bed, but she feels that it's insubstantial. Only space was permanent, nothing else had substance. The bed flowed with many bodies, and all of them her own. Time is a multiple sensation. It's overloaded. No single reaction for her to abstract. It was time. It moved. The whole universe slipped backward, forward, and sideways. It also kind of, in relation to what you were saying, Carlos, about another really interesting thing that looks at time, that I've been dying to do a video on, actually, and hope to do one soon. It should be still on my board, isn't it? Hopefully. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Is a British science fiction TV, well, I would almost call it science fiction horror TV show, called Sapphire and Steel, with the late great David McCallum and Joanna Lumley in the titular roles. And I don't know how to put it, actually. They're agents, if you like, elemental agents of the universe. And the thing that's the enemy, and there's only a few episodes of it, and they're absolutely brilliant. I watched them when I was very young, and I picked up a copy of it not too long ago. It's a great show. I think my wife thought it was quite scary, actually. I remember it scaring the crap out of me when I was a kid, but being mesmerized by it. Because they were both quite famous people. Even when I was young, he was one of the men from Uncle, and I'm not sure would she have been in the New Avengers at that point. Not to be confused with the American superheroes, but the kind of Purdy and Steele. Oh, she's Purdy in the New Avengers, isn't she? Who am I thinking? The original Avengers, Mrs. Peel and Steed, this kind of thing. But Sapphire and Steel, time is the enemy. If you like, it's the thing that they're concerned with in each episode. And it has a kind of not a particularly good ending. Kind of almost don't want to say something about it in case somebody out there looking for an intellectual property to milk would hook onto it and kind of do it again. But it's such a brilliantly made program. The atmosphere and it's incredible. And it's all kind of old fashioned filming and camera techniques with just kind of two actors really do. It's almost like a play for today kind of thing that we used to have in Britain, but it's phenomenally good. But this stuff about time and all of this kind of stuff reminds me of that as well. Some of the stuff in this chapter could almost be a conversation between Sapphire and Steel, which is interesting with Hayt and his lead eyes, if you like. Sapphire and Steel has a great introduction. It's kind of the titles of it. Check it out on YouTube. Transuranic elements cannot be used where life exists. It's one of them. It's a very like kind of like, the Twilight Zone and the Outer Limits kind of titles, but it's a bit modern. It must be very, very early 80s, I think. So the whole universe slipped backward, forward, sideways. And this is Alia speaking now. It has no thing aspect, she explained. Nothing tangential about it. Tangible about it. Sorry. You can't get under it or around it. There's no place to get leverage. There came, and now this bit's important, I think. And in terms of taking an overdose, if you like, the things that mirror the events in June, I suppose Paul takes, the water of life, this kind of thing. This is Alia taking an overdose of melange. Here's one of the consequences, I think. There came a fluttering of people all around her. Many someones held her left hand. Again, the left hand. She looked at her own moving flesh, followed a twining arm out to a fluid mask of a face. Duncan Idaho. And again, just the mask of a face there. We had this in the previous chapter. Both Bijaz and Hayt wearing masks, if you like. But the fluttering of people all around her, many someones held her left hand. You could read that two ways. One, it's the many, many different Idahos from the future, or two, that this is the multitude in her other memory, fluttering all around her. Many someones held her left hand, because again, if she dies, and as he pointed out earlier, what is the future if you die? Then all of those in other memory with her die too, if you like. And it tends to be something that gets them a flutter, if you like. And the word fluttering. Duncan Idaho, his eyes were wrong, but it was Duncan, child, man, adolescent, child, man, adolescent. Every line of his features betrayed concern for her. And I think is it her seeing the future Duncans in the Duncan that's here now. And she says, Duncan, don't be afraid, she whispered. He squeezed her hand, nodded. Be still, he said. And he thought, she must not die. She must not. No Atreides woman can die. And I've drawn a little. I think Cynthia made a wee comment. Is he confusing certain things with love? Is this the love that Duncan has for her sort of coming through, or hate? Sorry. He shook his head sharply. Such thoughts defied mentat logic. Death was a necessity that life might continue. And Alia's thoughts here are, the Gola loves me, Alia thought. So we get a change in time here at this point, and this is Alia overdosing. She's taken an overdose of melange, but this is we'll call it a near fatal overdose, if you like. So we get a shift in things within this chapter, that Duncan has guided her inside the family quarters and placed her on a bed. But the Gola loves me, Alia thought. The thought became bedrock to which she might cling. He was a familiar face with a solid room behind him. She recognized one of the bedrooms in Paul's suite. A fixed, immutable person did something with a tube in her throat. She fought against retching. So this is the family medic. And I've made a wee note, by the way, that this, I don't know why, often within this book, we get talk about doctors and medics, well, particularly medics, I think is the term, throughout this, and that they never seem to turn up. But this time one does turn up, if you like. And the question I've just wondered is, why are they not referred to as Sook doctors? Why isn't there a Sook doctor within the Atreides family here? And it's quite possibly because of everything that's happened with Yui. So this is the medic talking. We got her in time, a voice said. So this is the shift. And she recognized the tones of a family medic. You should have called me sooner. There was suspicion in the medic's voice. She felt the tube slide out of her throat. A snake, a shimmering cord. I thought, again, because we had the kind of serpentine, we had her muscles crawling like worms prior to this, and then we have the snake, a shimmering cord. The slap shot will make her sleep, the medic said. I'll send one of her attendants to... I will stay with her, the Gola said. That is not seemly, the medic snapped. A little bit of taking airs and graces above his station, I think. Stay, Duncan, Alia whispered. He stroked her hand to tell her he'd heard. Milady, the medic said, it'd be better if... You do not tell me what is best, she rasped. Her throat ached with each syllable. My lady, the medic said, voice accusing. You know the dangers of consuming too much melange. I can only assume someone gave it to you without. You are a fool, she rasped. Would you deny me my visions? I knew what I took and why. She put a hand to her throat. Leave us at once. So the medic making making a particular assumption there. He's assuming that someone has drugged her or given it to her without telling her what's in it. And that's, again, I suppose the medic putting one and one together and coming up with three. The medic kind of reminds me on a kind of a typical fool or clown in Shakespeare, if you like. The medic pulled out of her field of vision and said, I will send word to your brother. So she felt him leave, turned her attention to the Gola. The vision lay clearly in her awareness now, a culture medium in which the present grew outward. She sensed the Gola move in that play of time, no longer cryptic, fixed now against a recognizable background. So no longer cryptic, no longer hidden, if you like, is what that means. And here's her thoughts here. And again, I think this is really, really important. He is the crucible, she thought. He is danger and salvation. And she shuddered, knowing she saw the vision her brother had seen. So there we have it. What is it that Paul sees that she does not, that she's taken this overdose to figure out? It's Duncan Idaho. He is the crucible. He is the danger and salvation. And she shuddered, knowing she saw the vision her brother had seen. Unwanted tears burned her eyes. She shook her head sharply. No tears. They wasted moisture and, worse, distracted the harsh flow of vision. Really important here. Paul must be stopped. And again, I wondered why. So this is what she's got out of this. Just once, we're told she had bridged time to place her voice where he would pass. But stress and mutability would not permit that here. The web of time passed through her brother now like rays of light through a lens. He stood at the focus and he knew it. He had gathered all the lines to himself and would not permit them to escape or change. Now that's a wee bit of, that's a really important little section, I think. And I would suggest that also that it gives us a sense that I think Frank maybe is thinking a bit further down, further past Children of Dune, if you like. He's the crucible. So this is Duncan Idaho. She now knows that she saw the vision her brother had seen, and this is it. It's all these Duncan Idahos. As far as I can tell, he must be stopped. The other thing I suppose that's quite interesting about this, well, very quickly, I'll just get this. Once she had bridged time to place her voice where he would pass. Now, that's a reference to chapter 48 in Dune, the very last chapter before the epigraphs. Have I bookmarked this? Bear with me a wee second. I've written chapter 48, note 17. So I've got my notes here from Dune. Oh goodness, it's the last chapter. I forgot how many notes were in that. Tons. Bear with me a wee second. There we come. Here we go. Just to remind us of what that is. I'll just read you this. It's the bit where Gurney. Let me just see. Yeah, Paul says to Gurney, since we've rejoined, Gurney, sorry, it says, Gurney, since we've rejoined, I've yet to hear you produce the proper quotation for the event. And Gurney, as you wish, my lord, the victory that day was turned into mourning unto all the people, for the people heard say that day how the king was grieved for his son. And it was a particular reference to 2 Samuel 19:2 and 2 Samuel 9. It was word for word from the King James Version of the Bible, pretty much. It's where Joab tells David off for the death of Absalom. who's the third son of David. So Paul, we're told then, closed his eyes, forcing grief out of his mind, letting it wait as he had once waited to mourn his father. Now he gave his thoughts over to the day's accumulated discoveries, the mixed futures, and the hidden presence of Alia within his awareness. This is what we're referring to here. The uses of time vision, if you like. Of all the uses of time vision, that was the strangest. Alia had said, I have breasted the future to place my words where only you can hear them. Even you cannot do that, my brother. I find it an interesting play. And, oh yes, I've killed our grandfather, the demented old baron. He had very little pain. And silence. His time sense had seen her withdraw. So that's the time where she bridges time, if you like, to send a message. As a baby Alia, as a young Alia, an infant Alia, that's the word I'm looking for, to Paul in the future, just to let him know. But it seems that she wants to attempt to do the same thing here, but is unable to. Stress and mutability, the fixity of things, if you like, would not permit that here. The web of time, this is the other interesting bit, passed through her brother now like rays of light through a lens. He stood at the focus and he knew it. He had gathered all the lines to himself and would not permit them to escape or change. And I think that suggests that Paul has control over what's going on. I don't know what you guys think. That we've talked recently about, is Paul following a role that he's acting out step by step to make sure one particular future happens? And of course, there are problems with his vision, but now we know that this has got something to do with Hayt, something to do with Duncan Idaho. I think that's what this chapter is suggesting, quite strongly. I think he's both danger and salvation. It's really interesting, I think. And as I said, I don't think I ever noticed this before. Why, she muttered. Is it hate? Does he strike out at time itself because it hurt him? Is that it? Hate? And thinking he heard her speak his name, the Ghola said, Milady? If I could only burn this thing out of me, she cried. I didn't want to be different. And it's like the light, I've made a wee note here, like the light focused through a lens. So the sense that I get is that Paul has somehow, that the web of time has passed through her brother now like rays of light through a lens, that they're focused with an intensity. And that he will not permit, he's gathered all of it to himself and he would not permit them to escape or change. That there's the mutability, if you like, the fixity of what's going to happen is because he wishes it to happen, and that he won't allow any change in that. And that suggests, we've talked about Paul having no free will, that suggests that he has control, and that there is free will with Paul Atreides because he has chosen this particular path. And as much as we get this discussion about eternity, etc., that nobody can see that far, if you like. No one can see the whole picture. She wonders, why is he doing this? And it's the play on the words hate again. Whereas we know, and is this why we also have to ask what the Twi'leks have seen with their prescience, and what this kind of changes maybe even the plan within plan that you were asking about, Sootpot, to be honest with you. Now, because we kind of figured it's all about Duncan Idaho. Plan A seems to be Skytail, the face dancer, and his actions. Sorry, Plan A, that would be him. Plan B is B-Jazz again, but ultimately Plan C it's not really anything to do. It's really all about Duncan Idaho. It's not really about the Atreides at all. And is this why? Because somehow that they can see that Duncan is going to be something all the way down, and that's why they've called him Hate. It's not a pun on the word hatred at all. As we've said, it's hate in Arabic means life. That Duncan is life, and this is what we're told in this chapter. It's kind of bloody obvious, isn't it? Now it's subtle and it's obvious at the same time. Talking about those interesting kind of opposites, I suppose. There's paradoxical in a funny way, but I think if we do know where the Dune story goes, that this is why Paul is acting the way he does because of this vision. But what does he see? It's got something to do with the Gola. It's got something to do with Duncan Idaho, and now Alia can see it too. Carlos says, I've never heard of it, but McCallum was great in everything I've seen. Loved him in The Great Escape. Yeah, I love David McCallum. Fantastic actor. He passed away a wee while ago. If you've never seen Sapphire and Steel, Carlos, check it out. It's tip top science fiction. It is brilliant. He's Steel, obviously, and he's the personification of steel, if you like, and it's fantastic. It's engrossing, so atmospheric. And you could see it's a family program, if you like, but it kind of had the same effect that the old Doctor Who might have, if you like. The idea of hiding behind the sofa, if you like. But the two actors in it are superb, and they're mesmerizing, and the whole thing is absolutely engrossing. So well filmed and so well acted, and it's a thing of its time. It's finite. It's a very short. You would call it a mini series probably today. But if you're a David McCallum fan, I don't know, would it be on YouTube? It's something I have on DVD. Let me just have a wee look here. But you'll probably find the odd. Let me see, Sapphire and Steel. Just out of curiosity, watch the full episodes. Yeah. Full episodes are there. Sapphire and Steel, 12 videos with, I don't know, there's about 5 or 6 of them in total, I think. You get the intro and stuff, but it looks like there's a documentary or two about it, I think. Sapphire and Steel, Counting Out Time, complete British cult TV series. There seems to be a fair amount of it on series 1. Episode 1 is there. It's first episode's fantastic, and so there's just these kind of I don't know, they're like agents, just these mysterious supernatural beings that almost come in like two kind of almost Holmesian type detectives, and how their personalities, etc., if you like, are kind of matched. He's like Steel and she's like Sapphire. But if you haven't seen it, Carlos, check it out. I give it a 12 out of 10, if such a thing could be said. But no, I highly praise it. I love it. Can't wait. I don't have a DVD player on my computer at the minute. It's something I need to pick up an external drive or something. They've got one in the other machine down in our sitting room, if you like. But it is one of my favorite shows of all time. I think easily one of my favorite TV shows of all time. And I think if you love your science fiction, you love David McCallum, you'll absolutely love it. One of my favorite things that he did, oddly enough, we were mentioning it. I think mentioned it in the last couple of episodes. Is there's a rather good audio book of the Dunwich Horror, and it's read by. I've got 2 different versions of it, but one of the versions I have is read by David McCallum. And it's really good. It's probably my favorite Lovecraft story, to be honest with you. It's one I'd love to read, actually. But I kind of think, whenever I think I did Dagon being the first Cthulhu mythos story by Lovecraft, but to be honest with you, I would almost be inclined not to do an audiobook of that because David McCallum has done one, and why bother if it's really good. But I've actually got a real kind of scratchy, kind of old time radio show version of the Dunwich Horror, which is really, because it's kind of old and the recording's a bit funny, though it's completely listenable. it's really atmospheric, if you like. But he has a good reading of that. But yeah, he's in all sorts of things. But yeah, he's Ilya Kuryakin, isn't he? And from The Man from U.N.C.L.E. But to me, what he's most famous for is Steel from Sapphire and Steel. He's probably, again, it's a very British show, I think. But it's absolutely brilliant. And it wouldn't take you too long to watch, I think. Um, hmm, hmm. Hang on a wee second. There we go. There it is. Oh, come on. I've got it up here next to all my June videos, actually. Sapphire and Steel have been reassigned. This is it here. A wee bit of a shiny cover. There you go. Special edition created by P.G. Hammond. Well, there you go. 1979, 82, I think. I'll just read it. Set in a world where the future and past collide and time overturns reality, Sapphire and Steel will capture your consciousness and take you to altered states. Eerie, frightening forces are at work, and Sapphire and Steel have been assigned. Only the two time agents, Joanna Lumley and David McCallum, can stop the strange events and restore natural order to the universe. Tasked with safeguarding the structure of time, they use their uncanny powers to protect the present from the invading evils of the past and future. Thought-provoking, unsettling, and powerful drama with a supernatural twist. Sapphire and Steel was created by acclaimed TV writer P.J. Hammond, who wrote Torchwood and Ace of Wands. This version I have has that counting out time, which is that documentary that's on YouTube about Sapphire and Steel. There's commentaries on the first and last episodes with writer P.J. Hammond. Let me just see. I can't remember exactly how many of them there are. The least set I have is 6 discs, but it's 5 or 6 lengthy episodes, if you like. Assignments, as they're called, isn't it? I think assignment 2. Let's see. Yeah, Sapphire and Steel annual 1981. Good, but yeah, I think it's a fantastic show. 5. Is there a 6? Let me see. No, it might be just the 5 episodes. 5 episodes. No, tell I. It's 3 to 6. There's 6 episodes. And it's thrilling, absolutely thrilling. Couldn't recommend it more. How much time we've got on this one? Let me see. 850 minutes, but I think not too sure how they're broke up, but they're lengthy enough. They're incredibly well done. Couldn't recommend it more. Definitely, I'll do a wee program on it sometime when I get a chance. But if you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's absolutely worth a watch. As I said, it's one of those ones. If you want to watch it, if you're like myself, if I like to watch a horror kind of in bed with the lights out, that kind of thing. Not that I'm a big horror fan, but that kind of science fiction. It's so atmospheric. It's so good. I said I watched it not too long, but yeah, just a lot. This is reminding me a lot of it, to be honest with you. And it's all, as I said, it's almost the interactions. It's I think probably what it is it's Alia's blue within blue eyes, which would make her sapphire, if you see what I mean. And Hayt's eyes being metallic would make him steel. I think that's probably why I'm getting the association. And time is the problem. Time is the enemy. Time leaking, if you like. But it's a really, really good show. I'm actually really wanting to watch it right now, just because I'm gushing about it so much. But we'll get on with it. But this is why she muttered, "Is it hate? And does he strike out at time itself because it hurt him? Is that it? Hate? Is this what motivates Paul? Hatred?" And it's an interesting question, isn't it? Because we have moments with Paul in Dune, was it particularly just after the death of Leto? what is it? Is it Paul says something about teaching the universe the nature of real cruelty? And is this cruelty that he's doing this for this reason? I mean, he's letting his own partner die for whatever is going on here, and again, it's all despair. We're always told it's to spare her this, or spare, that this is the best possible outcome for her. But if he is fixed on a path without escape or change that he will not permit, it seems that this has got nothing to do with Chani at all. Unless it's the fact that she will bear the God Emperor who will ensure that all of these Duncan Idahos continue. If you see what I mean. Thinking he heard her speak his name, the Gola said, "Milady, if I could only burn this thing out of me, I didn't want to be different." Again, it's a bit like the light focusing the lens. "Please, Alia," he murmured, "let yourself sleep." "I wanted to be able to laugh," she whispered. Tears slid down her cheeks. And as much as a Fremen, no tears, she said earlier, wasting of moisture, but is she giving tears to the dead here, and quite a lot of them, if you like? There's a degree of self-pity here with Alia, and you can almost feel that it's justified, to be honest, can't you? "I wanted to be able to laugh," she whispered. Tears slid down her cheeks. "But I'm sister to an emperor who's worshipped as a god. People fear me. I never wanted to be feared." He wiped the tears from her face. "I don't want to be a part of history," she whispered. "I just want to be loved, and to love." I've made a wee note here, if you remember, about what Paul's words were about love, which I was a bit critical of myself. That people aren't concerned with love in the previous chapter, or is it back 2 chapters? Sorry, I think. And of course they are. And Hayt says, "You are loved," he said. Loyal Duncan," she said. "Please don't call me that," he pleaded. And again, is it to do with his sense of self, if you like. "But you are," she said, "and loyalty is a valued commodity. It can be sold, not bought, but sold." "I don't like your cynicism," he said. "Damn your logic, it's true." And she's seen it. And it reminded me just of the question that we asked back with Duncan and Bijaz, that truth and the future are one and the same, if you like. What happens in the future will be what's true. "Sleep," he said. "Do you love me, Duncan?" she asked. "Yes." And I've written next that that's a truth, but this is what she had. "Is that one of those lies?" she asked. "One of those lies that are easier to believe than truth? Why am I afraid to believe you? You fear my differences as you fear your own." "Be a man, not a mentat," she snarled. "I am a mentat and a man. Will you make me your woman then? I will do what love demands. And loyalty? And loyalty. That's where you're dangerous," she said. Her words disturbed. No sign of the disturbance arose to his face. No muscle trembled. But she knew it. Vision memory exposed the disturbance. So I suppose this is where they're admitting their love. She's desiring his love. He's admitting it for her, etc. She's wanting to know, is he lying to her? Is it just, you tell me what I want to hear at this point? Why am I afraid to believe you? His response is, "You fear my differences as you fear your own." And I think that's it. It's and as much as from her response, I think that is a mentat response. It's not exactly great poetic love, love words, this kind of thing. But then it's a bit of a dangerous situation, isn't it? That she's nearly died of an overdose. The word that we're getting associated with Duncan is dangerous. He is dangerous. He's danger and salvation. Sootpot saying, "I'll give it a look-see." Oh, check it out. Oh, absolutely. Have you not seen either, Sootpot? Who was it I heard the other day, by the way? what was her name? Is it Gedrin Ern, was it? Something like that. Um, Gedrin Ur passed away the other day. Soup pot. I'm sure you know who she is. Goodness, she's got the same dates as pretty much as Roger Corman. She must have been 98. Gedrin Ur was no Supergram. It's a very Scottish thing, I thought. From when I was a kid, Supergram. That was the actress that played Supergram. Kind of the period. All of this stuff would have been around at the same time. Actually, Sapphire and Steel, Supergram. What was the other one? Probably some Metal Mickey, that kind of thing. But yeah, she passed away the other day. OMG. No, I just thought, going back a bit. But yeah, if you haven't caught Sapphire and Steel, it's yeah, I'll definitely be doing a program on it sometime. As I would call it, tip top science fiction, brilliant, superbly acted. Though it's the actors that make it, But yeah, it's been an interesting week, isn't it? Or a week or two of we've lost some really interesting people within the entertainment business. I think I heard that did I hear as well that Brad Dourif, who's retired from acting, I think he was attacked and was injured, I believe. Who of course brilliantly played Peter Reese, sorry. And David Lynch's he's been in quite a few David Lynch films, hasn't he? Let me just see. Did I hear something about that? He's in so many good things. Let me just check the news there. Oh, maybe I'm mistaken, to be honest with you. You know what? Tell you what. Just take that as something that I've maybe something that somebody's put up that was a load of hooey. It happens now and then, so I don't think that's the case. Maybe I was just having a wee quick look there, and I don't see any news of an attack on him or something. But I thought he was. I thought I read something where he was injured recently. Pardon me. But it doesn't seem to be true. I might be wrong. But again, somebody sent me something just about him retiring from acting. Let's see. That's where you're dangerous, she said. Her words disturbed. No sign of disturbance arose to his face. No muscle trembled, but she knew it. Vision memory exposed the disturbance. So she's seen this and remembered it. She felt that she had missed part of the vision, though. But she should remember something else from the future. And I'm kind of wondering what this is. There existed another perception which did not go precisely by the senses, a thing which fell into her head from nowhere, the way prescience did. It lay in the time shadows, intensely painful. Emotion, that was it. Emotion. It had appeared in the vision, not directly, but as a product from which she could infer what lay behind. She had been possessed by emotion, a single constriction made up of fear, grief, and love. Again, we kind of had the worms in her muscles, but the snake, and now a constriction, and her throat being tight, I suppose. Made up of fear, grief, and love. They lay there in the vision, all collected into a single epidemic body, overpowering and primordial. Duncan, don't let me go, she whispered. Sleep, he said. Don't fight it. I must. He's the bait in his own trap. He's the servant of power and terror. Violence, deification is a prism enclosing him. He'll lose everything. It'll tear him apart. And I kind of wonder, who are we talking about here? Power and terror, I've made a wee note, Kratos and either Phobos or Deimos, taking your pick, um, are kind of the two different forms of terror, if you like, within Greek mythology. One is the son of the other. They're kind of different forms of terror, aren't they? One is the kind of fear that you have before you go into battle, I think, and the other one's the terror that you have while you're in battle. If I can remember correctly. He's the bait in his own trap. He's the servant of power and terror. Violence, deification is a prison enclosing him. He'll lose everything. It'll tear him apart. And Hayt says this, you speak of Paul. And I'm kind of wondering if she is speaking of Paul, or is she talking about Leto II here? They drive him to destroy himself. She grasped, arching her back. Too much weight, too much grief. They seduce him away from love. She sank back to the bed. They're creating a universe where he won't permit himself to live. I actually think it's Paul that she's talking about there. Who is doing this? He is. Oh, you're so dense. That's the second time she's called him dense. He's part of the pattern, and it's too late. Too late. Too late. As she spoke, she felt her awareness descend layer by layer. It came to rest directly behind her navel. Body and mind separated and merged in a storehouse of relic visions, moving, moving. She heard a fetal heartbeat, a child of the future. The melange still possessed her then setting her adrift in time. She knew she had tasted the life of a child not yet conceived. One thing about this child, it would suffer the same awakening she had suffered. It would be an aware, thinking entity before birth. And I've written, who is this child? The interesting thing is it says that the child is not conceived, not yet conceived. Now, obviously, both Ganima and Leto II have been conceived. The point of conception, if you like, is what we're talking about. She knew she had tasted the life of a child not yet conceived. One thing about this child, it would suffer the same awakening she had suffered. Now, I think this is Leto II that she's talking about here. And the fact that he has been conceived is one thing, but the fact that Paul doesn't see it makes me wonder, is that why she, why she hasn't seen it either, if you like. But it would suffer the same awakening she had suffered. That's Leto II, I think. An aware thinking entity before birth. So there we go. Found and saved, says Carlos. Excellent, check it out. Yeah, that's us at the end of the chapter, folks. Fear, grief, and love uniting in emotion, which is the thing that will bring Alia and Duncan together, if you like. And at this point, she's referring to him as Duncan almost always here. And even the word hate causing a bit of confusion within this chapter. But I think it's a cracking chapter. Very interesting with a little sort of interaction with the medic. But she has an overdose here. She nearly dies. And this is the risk that she takes at the beginning, And what's revealed to us, I think, is, as much as it's not sort of concrete in many ways, but in some ways it is. It's Duncan. Is he the gap that's in the universe that he's described as? The other things he's described as being shockingly linear. If you see what I mean, that ultimately what the Duncans will become is a line of Duncans throughout time. And regardless of where, I think that's kind of interesting, that regardless of where she looks in the future, she can see a Duncan there, whether it be in the past, in the present, this kind of thing. That he can be a man, an adolescent, a child, and then a man, an adolescent, and a child again. Many, somewhat, but this is the vision. this is the vision that she sees, that the whole object of this overdose is to pulse, and this is what she realizes, that it's him. She sensed the goal of move in that plane, no longer cryptic, no longer hidden, fixed now against a recognizable background. He is the crucible. She thought he is danger and salvation, and she shuddered, knowing she saw the vision her brother had seen. And it includes, by the looks of it, the destruction of part of Arrakis as well, possibly all of it. And I suppose it's a big clue, I think. And ultimately, Duncan is with Duncan is a character that appears in all of the Dune novels, which is quite a good trick for someone who dies in the first one. But ultimately, as many of us know, who is, as much as the Dune story kind of is bookended by the Bene Gesserit themselves, who is the one consistent character throughout the whole series? Who could we arguably call, if we move outside of the individuality of each book, who can we consider the main protagonist, if you like? I think that's the right word, actually. Who is the main protagonist? Possibly the hero in the literary sense of the Dune series, and of course it's Duncan Idaho. And I think this is where it's revealed. And as I said, I think for those who've not read this book, not gone through the Dune books before, it might not seem too much. It might be a little thing that we sort of glimpse over, and there's a little bit of vagary within it. As always, there's stuff that you can't see, some little gaps, this kind of thing. And we're getting clues, of course, to the child arriving at the children arriving at the end of the story. And of course, if we do know Alia's story, we do know that she doesn't have any children at all. There's Frank Red saying, "Evening all. Hi Frank, how are you? Thanks for joining us. We just hit the end of the chapter." There's Carlos saying, "Hey Frank," and Frank saying, "This chapter had me pondering the difference between a pairing of Alia with Paul versus a pairing of Alia with Duncan in terms of a Bene Chilax versus the Bene Gesserit dynamic competition." It's a good point. Yeah, it's kind of what is it? How does she put it? The darkest of dreams. Whenever he gives her the prime computation, if you like. The Bene Gesserit, where are we? The Bene Gesserit want a mating between you and your brother. It would lock the genetic. A whale escaped her. The egg and the flesh, she gasped. A sensation of chill swept over her, followed by intense heat. That's the melange kicking. The unseen mate of her darkest dreams, flesh of her flesh, that the oracle could not reveal. Would it come to that? It's most likely that if you go with the Oedipus kind of myth, that it would drive her mad and she would kill herself. I thought, saying that of course that's what happens anyway. I think the love between Alia and the Hayt Gola that becomes Duncan Idaho, it's not exactly a romance for the ages, is it? He loves her and he's loyal to her, that kind of thing. But she, I suppose whenever we get into Children of Dune, she becomes really, really dangerous. But I think we've been getting a slow build-up of that she's starting to descend into madness. I think that the risk that she takes here, as Duncan points out, what good is an oracle being an oracle if you're dead? That kind of thing. But yeah, it's a good question, and the possible futures and so on. But the one thing that the other thing that I got out of this, Frank, really was that I think for a few chapters now we've been discussing that has Paul lost his free will. And it's one of those things where, for me, is the whole concept of Dune about the dangerous hero, if you like, and what kind of person Paul is, and the questions that we should ask ourselves about why do we why do we support this person? And the reasons for supporting Paul are very obvious in Dune. He's been designed to be a particular type of hero, to be charismatic, to be appealing, to be an amalgam of almost all the great literary heroes that we've ever had. And that he's justified. He's kind of just a young man who's been quite hard done by. This book kind of makes us think, oh, gods, what a monster. Gods, what a monster. Sorry, I did a bit of Patrick Stewart there. But then the sympathy, I think, I've always thought that it's the same with Leto II, as much as we should. What Frank's particularly good at is that we somehow maintain our sympathy with these characters, and it should make us ask real hard questions about ourselves. But the sympathy I've always thought was from the realization that if there's no free will here, then Paul's a victim, if you see what I mean. And everything that happens is because it happens, and it's predetermined. And then this is the chapter that makes me doubt that again, particularly with Alia saying he must be stopped. But he stood at the focus, and he knew it. He had gathered all the lines to himself and would not permit them to escape or change. And that in terms of prescience, who's got prescience, and how we can alter and affect the future, it seems that Paul really does have control, that he's making one particular future happen. And I guess that's not the future where him and Alia are forced to have a child. But the fact that she lets out a big wail out of her, that's very, very reminiscent of, that's what Yocasta does basically when she finds out that Oedipus is her son. She lets out a hideous wail, runs into her chambers, and then hangs herself. But it's interesting to one of these little thought experiments on what sort of child would a pairing between Alia and Paul produce, if you like. The only other interesting thing about that, Frank, I suppose, is that is that who I was thinking on, Carlos? Sorry, I thought it was Steve Buscemi. Steve Buscemi, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I must have been conflating the two different things. I think I've been reading about the story about Brad Dourif retiring, and I must have saw that and put one and one together and came up with three. Still quite a bad thing to happen, isn't it? That's good to hear that Brad Dourif hasn't been attacked, and sad to hear that Steve Buscemi has. They're both great actors. Let me just have a quick look. Yeah. I hope he's okay. As I said, I only just kind of caught a brief punched in random attack while just some guy randomly attacked him. It's you kind of think that someone like Steve Buscemi, if I'm pronouncing his name right, I thought he would be a particularly popular actor, But yeah, I'm quite pleased to say. I think that's what I said. Pay no attention to me. I found out I didn't think it was Brad Dourif. I'm glad it wasn't, but I'm very sad to hear that he was assaulted as well. They're both, actors, really good actors. But yeah, it's kind of sad to hear that Brad Dourif is retired, but I think he's a good age now as well, and I think everybody deserves a retirement. But yeah, random madness. Carlos is saying, Frank saying, hi, Carlos. Carlos saying, gotta wonder how much incest is too much for the Bene Gesserit breeding program. I agree. It's and for how long have they been inbreeding? Interestingly enough, and I suppose as much as we know that Jessica is the Baron's granddaughter, sorry, the Baron's daughter, Fade and Raban are not his children. They're not his offspring. They're the offspring of his brother, aren't they? Is it Abelard? I think he's called. Let me get my old notebook out here. Oddly enough, I think that's one of the reasons why it's one of the appendices of Dune, isn't it? Is just a very kind of brief one. It's on some of the key players within. Let me just have a wee look. Where are we? Must be right. That's it. Appendix 2. Bear with me a second. I'll have a wee look. Religion. Appendix 3 and 4. Count Glossu Raban. Sorry. Let me see. Eldest nephew. Oh no, that's the Beast Raban. Sorry, eldest nephew. Yeah, he's the nephew of the Beast of the Baron Harkonnen. Sorry. Raban and Fade are legal sons of the Sirdar Baron, youngest demi-brother. Yeah, it is Abelard. Sorry, my old memory is not that bad. So it's a brother through concubinage, if you like. Abelard renamed Harkonnen through name and title. So they're not. It's what level of inbreeding is required, if you like, by the Bene Gesserit? It's a good question. So the Jessica being a direct descendant of the Baron Harkonnen, and then her child would meant to be married, I suppose, to Fade, wouldn't it? Who is a kind of half nephew, if you like. He's described as a nephew. He's someone who's a half brother, if you like, of the Baron. So there, again, we could, because of the level of concubinage there, we have to again see that the Bene Gesserit are mixing up the genes, but we kind of, it's the same with the Bene Gesserit. A lot of them don't quite know their own lineage, if you like. So how much inbreeding within the Harkonnens has gone on? And that kind of makes, I suppose, when you think about it, it makes the Atreides genes the random thing that's thrown in there, if you like. Yeah. But yeah, there we go. But yeah, it's a great chapter, I think. As much as it's meant to be almost a kind of romance chapter, as I said, almost has a similar start. It's almost like a balcony chapter, something kind of a hint of Romeo and Juliet or something like that about it. But it doesn't go that way. It's it's almost like a first date with an overdose. Would almost remind you on Pulp Fiction in a funny way, wouldn't it? But yes, it's what's great about it, I think, is that it really does tease some things out for us. And if we do pay attention, as I said, I think I missed this before last time I read this. I was focusing on certain things, but yeah, he is the crucible, he is danger. It's what does Paul see that she cannot? It's Duncan Idaho, and it's the little mysteries that are popping up. It's the same thing with I think when we were talking about with Paul, when he's saying hush little future, was it future ruler of the universe, wait your turn, and we kind of assume he's talking about Leto II, when it's not. It's Ganima. So it's another one of these little surprises that come out of the future memory that is really forced here with the overdose of Melange. And the interesting thing, I suppose, is you would get the sense with Melange that each time you would probably need to take a little bit more, that Alia has kind of reached a tipping point in terms of how much she can take. And not to be wanting to be denied her vision, but how much is that going to affect her? It's a great chapter. I really, really enjoyed it. It's a pity we had such a real mess of things last night, actually, as well. Just with people sort of trying to turn up regularly. And I know Friday nights are a wee bit of a let's get out of here, get out and enjoy ourselves for the evening, that kind of thing. But good questions, guys. But yeah, it makes it, as Frank said, it makes you ponder about the difference between the pair. It makes me ponder all sorts of things, Frank. Dear, oh dear, It's absolutely fascinating. As Frank's saying, it's absolutely fascinating, and I certainly agree that Paul seems to have agents. Is that agents in the eyes of Alia's vision? Yeah. And again, what the other little bit, I suppose, we're never given anything too concrete, are we? this what is it we're told? She'd felt that she'd missed part of the vision, though. Probably where she's overdosing. That she something else from the future. What is that? That there existed another perception which did not go precisely by the sensing, which fell into her head from nowhere, the way the prescience did. It lay in the time shadows, intensely painful, and its emotion, of course, that it kind of makes you wonder as well that one of the how unemotional are the Atreides about this kind of thing, if you see what I mean. Emotion, that was it. Emotion, it's like a moment of realization for her, isn't it? It had appeared in the vision, not directly, but as a product from which she could infer what lay behind. She had been possessed by emotion. And is this why she hasn't been able to see past herself in the future? A single constriction made up of fear, grief, and love. There lay there in the vision, all collected into a single epidemic body, overpowering and primordial. And I think it frightens her, doesn't it? That's why Duncan, don't let me go. Sleep, don't fight it, but I must. She must fight it. He's the bait in his own trap. And again, this, the first step in avoiding a trap. Dear oh dear, is I always thought that's one of the really stupid things about Dune is, to me, is the first step in avoiding a trap. Was they say is knowing of its existence, but the second step is not to stand on it. I think, whereas we get we keep getting examples of the Atreides stepping into traps, deliberately, which I think is kind of interesting. But he's the bait in his own trap. The servant of power and terror, violence, deification is a prison enclosing him. He'll lose everything. It'll tear him apart. You speak of Paul, question mark. There's no direct answer to that. And again, is it Paul or Leto II? Because ultimately, I suppose Paul's rejecting the Godhead, isn't it? As put, but he'll not be deified in the end. He'll be seen always has been seen, I think, as a prophet. For Leto II. So I was wondering, is that Paul or Leto II? And the question kind of runs on into the fetal heartbeat, the child of the future, the life of a child not yet conceived. Who is that? That could be anybody. Most likely, I thought it would be Leto II, but we could go far down into the future. It'd be an aware thinking entity before birth. I'm pretty sure that is Leto II, Sorry, sometimes it's hard for me to read the lowest comment, Frank, because the little heart that appears on the live chat, it blocks certain words sometimes. So it's absolutely fascinating. I certainly agree that Paul seems to have agency in the eyes of Alia's vision. Yeah. The fact that he's able to see after being blinded tempts me to believe that he is in communion with his terrible purpose, which grants him sight but not agency. Apologies for the typos. No worries at all. I'm on my way home using a voice to dictate to a half-broken phone. No problem at all, Frank. I wasn't noticing any. I'm never worried about typos unless I can't figure out what they're saying. If you know what I mean. But no, I totally, yeah. The terrible purpose, and it's the question is, again, does he, how much agency does he have? How much control does he have over this? Over the different, over prescience, over the visions, and over the one particular future that he's set out on. And as the whole thing about emotion there, and we'll see Paul being quite emotional at the end of the book, I suppose. Fear, grief, and love, but it does make me wonder, to do what he's doing, would certainly require you to be, what's the word I would use, dispassionate. He does seem kind of unfeeling sometimes, and again, it brings the question back about, to me, always it's I think it's something that Frank Herbert does so well, is we and particularly with Paul and Leto II and quite a number of the characters, I think, is that we should we should probably despise these people. The death toll that we've seen in this book is beyond anything that you've probably heard of, except for whole universes blowing up. It's billions of people, and the interesting thing is that the dead, the victims of the Atreides are always they're just numbers, they're just statistics, as Paul points out in this book. We do a wee thing as we go through the Dune books. That anybody who gets killed, we make a wee note of it. But even the death toll within the first book, at any given point, and I thought particularly, especially with Othim and his oh goodness, is it Dura? Was it? I think. There's just an example. That's the suicide of Hayt in the book. Anytime somebody dies, I do a wee skull, like and you can see that there's Juliet and his death up there, and below is rest in peace, the tools of Pardo kinds, men, women, kids, and Fremen tribes. It's just a monument to mass death, if you like. Kinds had but to point, saying, "Go there." Entire Fremen tribes went. Men died, women died, children died, but they went. And yeah, there you go. That's them. There's it's an interesting thing in the Dune series, But it does, this chapter in particular, it opens up all sorts of questions. But what is the role of Duncan in the future? And of course, for those of us who've read through the books, we know that, and that his character is of prime importance to the story. And of course, within this, as we were saying about the etymology of hate, is that as much as it's meant to be a red herring, it's not hate as in hatred, it's hate, which is the Arabic word for life. And that's how he's described in this chapter. It's really interesting. We both, with the use of the word facets, we get to see facets of both Alia and Hayt in this, different aspects of their characters, and that there's similarities, I suppose. How does he put it? Quite like that, what she says, be a man, not a man. You fear my differences as you fear your own. It's the fact that they're so different from everybody around them that gives them a commonality, if you like, that gives them a mutual compatibility, if you like, in terms of love, or at least an interesting relationship, But he does seem a wee bit. There's bits with Hayt here where he's getting really, really stirred up at the idea of an Atreides woman coming to harm. At the same time, he can seem quite dispassionate, But he seems quite caring in this. I kind of thought he would have had more exclamation marks, to be honest with you, with Frank and his Bangaria. But it's a great little kind of, there's a little bit of verbal sparring between the two, and you kind of see that, no pun intended, love-hate almost thing develop into proper love, if you like, and ultimately that's all. It's all Alia really wants. It's interesting. It oddly, oh dear, was it oddly enough, I was just chatting about. We're just talking about a few people who'd passed away there, just at the start of the chapter, that we'd seen that Bernard Hill passed away, and Roger Corman, and we've had Gurdon Ur, who played Super Gran. It was a kids' TV show when I was a kid. I thought she was really good. But it was just the end of Battle Beyond the Stars. It's just John Saxon going, "I don't want to die," boom, that kind of thing. It's one of those. I don't know. I often thought that if I could change one line, and that it would be just have John Saxon going, "I just wanted to be loved," boom. For reasons of my own, I suppose, but it was partly me thinking of Jason and the Argonauts and how Jason dies. It's that kind of moment of self-pity. If you like, Jason just basically, well, to paraphrase, he sits down next to the Argo. It's one of the deaths that's amused me the most, probably, in in Greek mythologies. He basically sits down next to the Argo, and which is an interesting ship and almost has its own personality, if you like. But kind of basically says nobody gets me but you, and the ship's keel falls on his head and kills him, almost like that, I suppose. But yeah, life of a child not conceived, yeah. Unaware thinking empty. And we're pushing towards the end, folks, And we have, I think our next chapter is going to be quite a little brief one. Thank goodness. My hands are killing me at the minute doing all this scribbling. So, but our next chapter will be chapter 22 in this book. For some people, it's going to be chapter 23. I think we've said that I've got a copy now with the first chapter with Bronzo of Ix in it. It's not in the 3 copies that I have, which is kind of weird. But the next chapter is just 8 pages, and then we have chapter 22. Then we have this epic chapter to deal with, which I'll have mucho notes to write on. Chapter 23 is 20 pages in my copy, and then we have a nice little 8-page finish and an epilogue to get. So we're really heading towards the end of the book, and I think the tension's building nicely. Again, Frank does like to mention it, we're getting to the conclusion, which I'm really looking forward to. And I'm going to be doing that chapter with Bronzo of Ix. So once we finish this, I will jump all the way back, and we're going to do that chapter. I'm going to call it a chapter 0, if you like. We'll fit it in at the start. It'll fit in nicely into the once we do the episode on it, we'll be able to put it into the playlist, and it'll kind of go where it should belong, I suppose. But I still find it one of the things that quite disturbs me about the Frank Herbert estate is that the way they've handled the text of Dune, of the Dune series. Got another typo in this chapter this week, but the amount of mistakes in these books is horrendous, and the fact that there's no consistent edition of Dune Messiah. So I've got 3, I think, maybe even possibly 4 somewhere. Different publishers. This one's hotter. I've got Nell over there, and so on. And of course, I think we were talking about. I think the one that Cynthia has that has the story beginning with the interrogation of Bronzo of Ix. Is the Berkeley edition, I believe, which I would quite like to get my hands on. But I've now got an ebook version of it. So we'll definitely be doing that to make sure that we've covered everything in Dune Messiah, to be complete about it. But I was actually quite appalled by that. I had no idea about it, and I said over the years I've had multiple copies of, and maybe it's just an American Britain publishing thing, the UK versus USA. Where we have different titles for things like Tiger, for example. That kind of thing is The Star's My Destination in America, but it was Tiger first over here in the UK. But something that just quite appalled me, and so I'm actually quite looking forward to reading that. There we go, folks. But yeah, thank you as always for the comments. It's been a wee quiet night tonight, but thank you everybody who's been in the room. As I said, it was we should have went on Thursday, last night. Just YouTube would not let us on properly at all. I think we had all sorts of problems. So we went at 9 o'clock. We tried again at 10, and it just wasn't happening. So we're hoping for everything being okay tonight, and it seems to have worked quite well. But yeah, we're sorry about that. I think we were having a wee natter about Sapphire and Steel as well, which for some reason the characters in this chapter reminded me on a lot. But I'm just saying, if anybody's never seen Sapphire and Steel, 6 episodes, I believe. David McCallum and Joanna Lumley from the late 70s, early 80s, and I couldn't recommend this more. It's really good old-fashioned science fiction with a hint of horror in it. But we were sort of saying that the enemy in it, the kind of thing that they're always fighting against, is time. And it was definitely worth the check out, I was just going to say a couple of other things, but I'm still reading it, just in terms of what we're looking at the minute. It's been I'm still reading Spaceman of Bohemia. I'm near the end. Still a bit to go. And I have to say, Let's see, about that much to go. Getting there, but it's been a bit of a slog, to be honest with you. This is the book that Spaceman with Adam Sandler, that film that's came out recently on Netflix, is based on. And I'm definitely thinking, in terms of the story, the pacing created, that's an example where the film is better than the book, which is a very rare thing for me. But it was just, I think Sootpod had been asking about some new books and stuff, and I was just going to show you. I've got the summer reading here. Not really going into these yet, but it's just this book has slowed me down a bit. But it was just to say that when people recommend me books online here, I do listen, and I don't go out and buy books all the time. But the most recent one that was recommended to me, what was it called? It was the, here, let me say. Oh, for the goodness. For the life of me, I've had, M. John Harrison's Light. I quite like that. That was really good. So just in terms of, once I get this read, I'd kind of started Beautiful Star by Yukio Mishima. And I kind of like it so far, but I wanted to give it my proper attention. It's not too thick a book, I don't think. Let's see. Oh, it's thick enough. And this is only, if anybody knows Mishima, this has only been available in English for a couple of years, so it was brand new to me. I've read a little bit of Mishima and know a little bit about him. So just in terms of recommendations, I've always wanted to get some Octavia Butler. Have a read at this, and this is, I think, the book that she's probably best known for, Kindred. So I'm hoping to get this read over the summer. But the two kind of recommendations that I picked up from members of the audience was, and I'm looking forward to them when I get the time, is I've picked up Snow Crash by Neil Stevenson, which is looking kind of interesting, but sort of cyberpunky by the looks of it. But the other one that I'm really looking forward to, and I have been reading. I was really sad to say, where do you see this? I ordered this from Amazon, and this is the state the book came in, with a stick of glue in the back, and it's actually got what do you call a printing overhang, if you see what I mean. And it's actually ripped the page, which was quite miffed about, but it's kind of wrecked a couple of footnotes at the back, but they're nothing that I wouldn't be able to figure out, if you like. That they're kind of to do with Greek goddesses and stuff like that, references to the Odyssey. But this was also recommended to me, and I'd never read. This is Clark Ashton Smith's. It's a collection of his stories published by Penguin Classics. Is The Dark Eidolon and Other Fantasies. And I've had a wee flick, because this is the author who. As much as we talk about certain types of writers, if you like, that kind of, I was pointed out, this is the chap that would complete the triumvirate, if you like, of those kind of writers. That was Robert E. Howard, H.P. Lovecraft, this kind of thing. So this is Clark Ashton Smith, who I've never read before, and genuinely hadn't just had missed him, if you like. Things go past your radar sometimes. And what I liked about this is a collection of 3 different kinds of works, if you like, really, and a lot of them are set in the Cthulhu mythos. But it's a collection of short stories, and then something that I quite like. It's also a collection of prose poems and of poetry. And I was, and again, there's stuff in here like to Howard Phillips Lovecraft, this kind of thing. And I think, actually, to be honest with you, I think there was something in this that I might have read before, which was a poem. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this. And I have to just having a wee flick through it. It seems quite a nice little book. It's got a good little introduction and plenty of stuff that can be read in bites, if you like. So it was just to say that, always keep the recommendations coming, folks. It's the same with X-Ray Zero's been sending me links to films and documentaries. We put a wee link in the chat there, and for the David Lynch, David Lynch documentary, which I really enjoyed. But this is a couple of your recommendations, so I do listen, and I check stuff out, and I look forward to letting you know. I suppose Beautiful Star was one that I just picked up by random, It seems quite interesting. It's a bit like Third Rock from the Sun, but maybe a bit more serious. Four members of the same family figure out that they're aliens, all from different planets. So just that's going to be my summer reading, if you like. And yeah, a couple of chunky books there, but a good little range of science fiction and a little bit of fantasy horror as well with Clark Ashton Smith. Um, hmm. Carlos is saying, I don't think that tolerance melange was ever discussed. Yeah. Well, it's one of those things that I've said, Carlos, in creating these notes. I think somebody had said about it actually at some point that we could make a video on all the different effects of melange. But I think this is the first time we don't know how much she's taken. We're just told it's a potion, don't we? Yeah, all the different little side effects of melange up, and we move on down through the series until we get artificial melange. But how much is too much? What is a dose? And does it really matter when we live in a planet where this stuff is saturated into the air and your food and your drink? It's everywhere, isn't it? So it's I suppose it's like anything else. I suppose too much of a bad thing. Nothing in excess, everything in moderation, as the Greeks would say. But yeah, we get the sense that if Duncan hadn't been here in this chapter, that there's a good chance Alia would have died from this overdose, or perhaps not, because again we get that from. And again, I think this kind of mirrors Paul taking the water of life. Certain things kind of are quite familiar within how things move within Dune Messiah, within the action that moves within Dune itself. They're not identical in any shape or form, but there's certain recurring things, if you like, and I think that's definitely one of them. But yeah, it's been an interesting chapter, and we've actually jumped back a little bit within our notes to chapter 48 a wee bit there today, and also back up to get some of our etymological work out of our first notebook on Dune for Hayt. I suppose the point I would make, just Carlos, is that these wee notebooks that we're doing. I'll just put this one back on the shelf to show you. But there's our 4 Dune complete notebooks. Each one of those is about 300 pages. Is that they're working for our benefit, I think, was the kind of the point in doing this. I could just sit and read these books to you one chapter at a time and give my observations on it as we go. But within the Dune series, I genuinely believe, having looked at the damn things a number of times, that the devil is absolutely in the detail, and that's why I write out each chapter as I go. So I'm actually writing out the entire Dune series word for word in these books, but with all my little additions and notes, and as I said, we're annotating it. But it's a lot easier actually for me to read from my notebooks than from the small text, if you like. And to be honest with you, as I've said, I'm seldom kind to a book. Not deliberately so, but this one's got a split in it. And it's interesting. I worked with a lot of books, but it's only seems to be that the Dune series consistently falls apart on me. I don't know why, but it's a lot easier. The writing's a lot bigger for compared to the way I write these out. If you see what I mean, and I can color code them, but it just makes life a lot easier for me. But because I have to literally write out every word, it means I can consider every word. It's something I kind of explain to my students when they're doing maths, for example, that if you're doing trigonometry, there's a trigonometry question in front of you with a triangle and some information. I get them to draw it themselves rather than just work with the one that's in front of them, because that way they become familiar with each aspect of that given triangle. They write in the angle, they write down the sides, and they did that, not someone else, if you see what I mean. So just in terms of even little things, just the words that I don't understand, anything that makes me ask a question or query, or anytime we catch Frank kind of pinching someone else's work, this kind of thing, it all goes down in here. And the good thing is, I suppose, and for me to find things, I would use the epigraphs to jump back and forward. And if I do jump back, like I did today, for example, where were we? It was just the bit where Alia is talking about the time that she went forward in the future to leave Paul a message. Let's see, where is it here? That she's unable to do that this time. Bear with me a second. That was a couple of interesting things in this chapter tonight. Yeah, so I've written here, and this is the way I'm kind of working with it. Once she'd bridge time to place her voice where he would pass. So I went off and found that. But so at this point, I've written, this is Dune chapter 48, note 17. It's just down there. But whenever I jump back to the notebook, which is over there now, I go to that notebook, and then what I scribbled into that notebook is is see Dune Messiah chapter 21. Note 49, and so the little notes like that, they're becoming self-referential, if you like, referring back and forth. So the notebooks behind me are still getting updated anytime we have a reference to them here. But as much as it took 4 for Dune, it's going to take 2 just for Dune Messiah. But it's pleased me kind of in a way, as much as it's not a particularly modern way of doing things. I'm old-fashioned enough that I prefer a notebook and a pen, to be honest, and that there's a sense of permanence about them, But certainly, I think whenever it comes to, if I decide to try, whenever all this is done, if we can do little things like make videos about Melange or something, and I think I said once upon a time that to get there's a diagram that I did for the PhD, which is the life cycle of the worm. And to get the life cycle, I had to read all 6 books. There's bits here, bits there, bits, and I actually plowed through them, looking for anything to do with the worms, and only the worms and how they live. So I did a full read just to get that information. But it wasn't in 1 book or 2 books or 3. It was across all 6. If you see what I mean. Pretty sure it was across all 6 actually, but that was just because there was so much. The smart thing to do, as a picture paints 1,000 words, was to create 1 diagram. But hopefully that'll be something useful that we can do at some point. Is there anything that we really want to focus on in particular? These notebooks will help us, and also have with sort of a combination of notebooks, the novels themselves, and electronic editions of the Dune series, which allows us to do fast, quick searches for specific words, But there we go. Well, there's midnight. The witching hour has arrived, folks. And I'm really pleased that everything went well tonight. There's a wee bit of a small audience, but always appreciated, as I said. Back in the days when I was playing in Happy Shrapnel, we'd always say, I'll do a gig as long as there's 3 people in the room. And we did, But it's great to have a few of you in here tonight. It makes it a nice wee sort of intimate thing. And again, anybody watching on the rerun, apologies for missing the Thursday. I know the Thursday suits a lot more people actually in some ways, but there was very little that we could do about it, So excuse me, apologies. And so that I'll just say then that we'll be on hopefully on Thursday, fingers crossed, with chapter 22. This Thursday coming, hopefully at 9 p.m. GMT +1. And then I would like to keep that on the go. And then basically, I'm going to have a fair chunk of work to do for chapter 23. The good thing is that a little bit of time, not a lot of time, but a little bit of time has freed up on Mondays and Wednesdays, actually. So my first half of the week's pretty busy, filled with students. So we have just a few of them have finished at the moment, but that'll give me a few extra hours in the week to get at that, and hopefully we'll have that done on time. But on to the end, basically, and the epic conclusion of Dune Messiah. So I'll tell you what, folks, it's late, and oddly enough, I'm not too tired tonight. I had a wee bit of a nap earlier, but I'll say good night, actually. So listen, as always, folks, Frank, Carlos, Souppot, a lot of you's there. Anybody else that's out there, thank you, Joseph Smith. I think it was there too. and Cynthia had to head off. But thank you very much, all of you, as always, for your contributions and questions and queries and ideas. It's all great stuff. And I says the other thing I suppose is that whenever we have all of these notes done and these books done and stuff, that these videos will be hopefully have some kind of permanence up there on YouTube as well for people who want to come back and look at different chapters. People who want to read the story and bite a bit of a call. It's almost the ultimate kind of York Notes kind of thing, if you like. But there hopefully will be a bit of permanence to these things, and that they'll help people read the books and help them understand it, because they are dense books and they are complicated in many ways. As much as I think they're not complicated to read, but they can be complicated to understand sometimes, because of the back and forth of the time stuff, if you know what I mean, and the fact that Herbert likes to hide things within hidden things within hidden things within hidden things, all of this kind of stuff, but it does make tearing these books apart this way quite enjoyable for me. Though, as I said, some people say it's quite anal, it's quite pedantic, this kind of thing. Somebody explained the word pedant the other day, and I never took it as an insult, but apparently the word to be pedantic is an insult. There you go. And I thought I was kind of pedantic in a funny kind of way, but I always thought it was a good thing. I just took it as having a particular attention to detail, but apparently not. It's apparently insulting. It's not a nice thing to self-refer to. But there you go. Well, listen, folks, thank you very much. For those of you who are driving on the way home, etc., be safe, and hope you get home safe, okay, and have a good weekend. And we'll catch you up hopefully on Thursday, folks. Thank you very much as always. Hopefully we'll see you on time with no problems next time. And that just leaves me to say good night. Look after yourselves. All the very best, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Good night now. Do 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 ba 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 ba.